The club deck?
Club Deck. I do know the makers of Club Deck, and they might be in the audience. And if they are, I will pull them up.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and that's one of the best things about it is not only that we talk often, but we talk about features and what features they're it's ridiculously, incredibly, unbelievably responsive to feature requests, and they update the app about every 2 days with new features that I ask for. So it's been rather phenomenal. And they are essentially building the ideal um, moderators app, where, for example, the Clubhouse app is ideal for the listeners, but they are building the app that's ideal for the content creators. And there's a bunch of features that are kind of unfair to have as a moderator, and they're adding more all the time. Where it's becoming to the point where, I mean, you can of course host rooms on the mobile app, but they're adding in. I'm now streaming this to YouTube, by the way, and secretly. I mean, nobody knows where it is. I just do it to test it to make sure it's consistent and works all the time, and it has been. And then it also pushes out to Anchor, which pushes out to Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. It's doing. They're now adding all of the analytics, like from ClubHub.site, which has a ridiculous amount of analytics, and just all kinds of crazy bells and whistles. There's also now on the streaming. It currently only shows like a static image, but what Ben came up with a fantastic idea, which is it will it will make it such that your whoever is speaking, their face photo is shown with their name under them and a little bit of their bio. And then the next person who speaks, their face is shown, and the previous person's face kind of moves over to the left and kind of fades out a little bit. And then the next person who comes up, same thing. They're the main face, and now you've got two faces over to the left, and they're faded. And then as you go further to the left, the face fades, so you get this context of who is speaking now and who were the last three or four previous speakers, and it so you get the feeling like you're watching it on YouTube, which by the way, it streams
Mm.
not only to YouTube but simultaneously to YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. So you could really start to grow an audience for people. I'm thinking it might even be useful to people who do use Clubhouse, but for some reason might maybe missed one. They weren't able to join at some particular time, and they want to listen to it, and it's there, it's recorded. And they can listen back to it if they felt like they just want to catch up with whatever was happened that day. So that could be a really interesting use case as well. But there's certainly a lot of people who might just prefer to discover news through YouTube. And the benefit of YouTube, of course, is it transcribes everything. So all of the text is there, and it's indexable and searchable, and you can tag it, all the content. You could put timestamps of when we spoke about, Facebook or Apple or Google or whatever, and make it very searchable and usable for historical kind of cataloging purposes or whatever. So if somebody said, "Oh, do you remember when we had that conversation about whatever?" You're like, "Oh yeah, that was like 4 days ago. Oh yeah, here it is, and here's the link right to that time." So kind of interesting to use it in that context, but we will see how it evolves. It's just all fun and experiments for the time being. Um, so let's jump into it. Bunch of folks raising your hands. We'll wait a little bit because I think the people who joined at the beginning know how this whole thing works. But if you don't, that's okay. Just jump up on stage, and we'll play it by ear. And anyone got something they want to share hot off the top?
I have a story.
Yeah, go for it.
I think Marquez Brownlee came out with this really interesting video yesterday about Apple versus the paradox of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I would seriously recommend anyone over here, like everyone over here, go check that video out.
It
It's
was a
a
great one.
Yeah, it talks about like how Apple basically kills the companies that make accessories or add additional functionality to Apple products,
On his
and
is
it's
this on his YouTube account?
It's on his YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it right now.
And
It was just 15 hours ago. It's called Apple versus the Paradox of Choice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah, it's a great video. I think like everyone should go check it out. But I think the essence of it really
Better
is.
hold. Sorry to interrupt you 3 times in 2 minutes, but I'm going to tweet it right now from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, so that everyone can get a really easy link to it. Because we've now got nearly 350 followers. There are a lot of people in this room, and if you don't follow it, I recommend you do. It's very easy. It's you can see it by clicking on the title of this room. You'll see the Tech News Club, which includes a link to the Twitter account, which is very simply TNATW, which is short for Tech News Around the World. So I've just tweeted it just now, and sorry again, but do continue, Raghav.
Yeah, so basically, like one thing I thought was really interesting was that he brought up was how Tile is now testifying in the Apple antitrust case, uh,
Yes.
especially because like their business has sort of been cannibalized by Apple releasing AirTags.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that
Of
I just
Well,
course.
wanted to bring that video.
what was interesting about that bit, though, in what MKBHD was really getting around to with the entire video is that the reason that the case will go nowhere in court is because Apple presents all of it as a choice. And basically, because they opened up their protocols and they allowed Tile to use their network, their Find My situation,
iBeacon.
basically, yeah, they're basically saying, people have a choice. They can use Tile on our Find My network, and we're completely fine with that. And the reality is, if they use Tile, Tile can basically make a tile that works with Find My. And the thing is, they basically be helping Apple extend the reach of the Find My network. So regardless of if they do or not, Apple wins.
Yeah, and I have some personal experience here because the company I was at before was an MFI manufacturer. And if it's funny enough, on my Facebook feed today, it came up that 7 years ago we became an iBeacon uh, member. So they've been doing this a
Mm.
long time. And in the contract, it actually says, hey, look, we're in a lot of businesses, sometimes in competition with you, and we reserve the right to do business in the areas you're doing business in, regardless of what your plans are. It's really
Mm.
interesting. And it's in the I'm sorry, Sid. It's in the Apple MFI, like they're basically guidelines, the Made for iPhone program, the iBeacon program. It's all in those terms, and I'm probably going to lose my license right now. See you guys.
No, oh, come on, no.
But
Yeah.
yeah, one other company I felt like that Apple really killed that I personally have like a very, very strong connection to was like 53. I mean, they were acquired by WeTransfer, but like they used to make this really beautiful stylus called the Pencil by 53 for like the iPad. And like when Apple released the Apple Pencil, it basically killed that entire product line.
Mm.
One of the interesting facts about that, Raghav, was that he brought up a very interesting question, which was, should Apple not be allowed to, like, is it fair for Apple to not be allowed to make products for their own ecosystem, just because it'll kill off another? They're in a weird situation. It's like, are they supposed to stop innovating? Are they supposed to stop making products that work best with their own garden? Just, or and let other people succeed and they just stop succeeding? Or like, it's hard, because if they make something, it's going to, no matter what, somebody's going to get ate. And he kind of compared it to that shark that has the little fish that kind
Yeah,
of feed off of it, and how those little fish that feed off of the shark, by cleaning the shark's back, they get the benefit of eating the scraps. But sometimes if you're inside of the shark's mouth, when that shark decides to close its mouth, you're going to get, chomped. And so he said, in comparison, you can go out and swim in the ocean by yourself, or you can swim here with me, the shark. So it's kind of like Apple's a shark, and all these companies are those little fish feeding off of it.
There used to be a
I think
fun.
like,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
No, there's a fun game. I mean, when even more so than the hardware is on the software side, when they do these big iOS updates, like the when they, not the 14.5, but like when they do iOS 15 will be the next big one. There's often, a handful, sometimes even a dozen new features or functions, which are actual apps, right? Like for example, your phone dimming after 10 p.m. That used to be a separate app that you would use on your Mac or whatever. Same with the Mac OS, where a lot of the Mac OS functions are apps that get very popular, and then Apple realizes, oh, a lot of people like that function. Okay, let's just internalize it into the OS, and then bye bye company who spent 5 years building that thing.
The point I actually wanted to bring up was something that Tyler actually like said yesterday, which was that because like these are publicly traded companies, right? Of course, that was in reference to like Facebook, but like Apple being a publicly traded company, they have like a responsibility to constantly make money and like improve their products. But like Michael said, like it's just killing other companies every time they add some of this functionality.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, like I said, it used to be a game on these WWDCs or on these big keynote events of how many companies are going to get killed this time, and people would make a list. It's like, okay, here are the 10 companies that just got killed at this Apple keynote event with all these new features, and
It is a very dangerous place to live. Like being like your entire business relying on creating a specific side thing for an Apple product is a very dangerous place to live in.
yeah. Well, it's not just Apple as a platform. I mean, you have to think of the big five as these big platforms, almost like islands. And you have Facebook Island and Apple Island and Google Island and Amazon Island.
Mm.
And if you build exclusively on one island or on one platform, and you're not able to move off if things go bad. Yeah, then you're toast. So
Mhm.
the smart move is to not build exclusively on one island, is to kind of diversify a little bit.
It's choosing a citizenship of a country
Yeah,
almost.
precisely. I mean, you become a tech refugee and seeking asylum on some other island, and each island charges tax, right? And some of them charge 30% tax, as we know. Microsoft just announced they're lowering the cost of their game store tax from 30% to 12%, which is clearly an indicator of things to come. And by the way, that's the first headline of the day here. The EU, the top story from Wall Street Journal, and my God, give me a second, just for context. Here's all the people covering this headline: the EU Commission itself, The Verge, BBC, TechCrunch, Gizmodo, Engadget, Fortune, The Guardian, The Verge, Vox, New York Times,
Jeez.
Irish Times, Insider, Mac Rumors, Apple Insider, Bloomberg, Reuters, to name just a few. And the headline
Everyone's
is:
on this.
EU charges Apple with antitrust violations, alleging that Apple squeezed rival music streaming apps, Spotify, by requiring them to use its in-app payments system, which is true. And Daniel has been saying this for a very long time. Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, which is why can't the Spotify customers pay Spotify directly, which they would be very happy to do, and let Spotify keep that money without paying the 30% tax. And in fact, Daniel just tweeted about this headline. But before I read here's what Daniel wrote. He did a tweet saying, "Today is a big day. Fairness is the key to competition. With the EU Commission statement of objections, we are one step closer to creating a level playing field, which is so important for the entire ecosystem of European developers." And then the Margaret Vestager, who leads the EU Commission in this regard, the Anti-Competition Commission. She's Danish, by the way, so Swedes are very familiar with Margaret. Our preliminary conclusion: Apple is in breach of EU competition law. Apple Music compete with other music streaming services, but Apple charges high commission fees on rivals in the App Store and forbids them to inform of alternative subscription options. Great point. And it says consumers lose out. And what she's saying is Spotify is not able in the App Store to say, hey, at least you have a choice. You can pay here in the App Store, but we have other ways that you could subscribe to Spotify if you go to our website, or etc. So that is an interesting point. Apple charges high commission fees on rivals in the App Store and forbids them to inform the customer of alternative subscription options. And that's why the EU is now going to slap some heavy fines on Apple's big ass. How big is the question, and how
$12
Yeah.
million.
Yeah, exactly. There was an article. What country was that? Russia or somebody who just fined Apple $12 million? I think it was Russia. Like
Yeah,
it,
Russia.
Colombia. I think
yeah, no, it
Colombia
was
was right.
Russia, and it was like, what the hell is the point of even fining Apple $12 million? Like it cost them more than $12 million to even prepare to show up for the
Didn't
hearing.
someone say $1 billion a day, right? That's that's
Yeah, they're
what they're
making a
claiming.
billion. Thank you, Chris. Exactly. It was just reported Apple's making $1 billion a day, like $12 million. That's in the time it took us to even talk about it. They've made twelve
Was
million
it
dollars.
Apple or Facebook? The 12
Apple,
million.
Apple.
Okay.
But
What's
For
interesting to me is
once, we
that
are
these
trying to be
companies.
nice.
sorry, say again.
What's interesting to me is that. Go ahead, Elena.
For once, we are trying to be nice.
Oh,
And, and you is talking about that we find them
Oh, the
12 million.
Russians. Yeah,
yeah.
fair enough.
What's interesting to me about that is that we people celebrate are celebrating a win for Spotify, and Spotify is making this announcement how it's a win for things to be fair. But in reality, there is no company that's ever going to beat Spotify in this space. No new company actually has any chance of ever reaching Spotify. Like all of these companies, like it's crazy to me that companies that big are able to get people on their side as if they are the quote unquote little guy. And in reality, their Spotify's a fucking giant.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? I mean, I know too much, but why do you think? I'm curious to hear. You're smart. You understand Apple. Why do you think Spotify has now passed Apple Music for both podcasts and music generally?
I think that Spotify. So I use both. I use Spotify because my music is on there. But I use Apple for my own personal consumption because I'm in the Apple ecosystem, and for me, using Apple Music is just better. However, I do think Spotify's been around longer. They understand the industry much better, and they're a much better platform for anybody that's not on an iPhone, and even for a lot of people that are on iPhones. But I didn't. So I'm not slighting Spotify in any way. I think they're a fantastic platform. However, that said, they're still a giant, and it's the same thing with Epic and Google and all these other giants. It's like it's interesting to me how they're able to position themselves as the quote unquote little guy, and then people who are in fact never going to be able to compete against any of them, well, they're able to get them on their side, and they're like, this is a big win for all of us. But I didn't make any new money outside of the music that I have on the platform, but I did. The common person, the common programmer didn't make any money off of the win, and it's not really going to change anything for them. But it's positioned that way, and they make people feel that way, and it's just really interesting to me how that all works.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Yeah.
to Michael's point, every generation will actually have a company they hate, and
Stop
and
it, Chris.
Apple is just one of them,
Yeah.
you know.
But it isn't.
I
But
love the
back
list of
back
Spotify.
back to the point
I,
though.
I,
It's
I
Spotify
it is
does.
the other.
They do a very
I,
good job of not being overly dependent on one platform. Like
Oh yeah,
they've actually come to the point where they themselves are starting to be a platform of their own right. So you're seeing app developers building, just starting, by the way, because Spotify hosts hackathons at their HQ in Stockholm,
right.
and people
Can we
build.
can we just be,
Yeah,
can we just be honest about this though?
yeah,
I mean, this is a protectionist measure to protect a European champion, right? I mean, that's really what's going on.
to a
They're
degree it is.
protect.
You're right, Charles.
I mean, they're pretending that it's all about my antitrust, but
Yep.
in reality, it's about my Spotify, and that's what's really
Mm,
going on. And like, look, I've got nothing wrong with the Europeans. A lot of the European privacy commissioners, they talk a double game on things like facial recognition. I mean, they're very, very political. And so I think we need to just be honest about this because it's just kind of ridiculous that they try to like cloak themselves in like we're standing up for the European citizen, and it's like okay, whatever. Meanwhile, they'll go and they'll do a deal with China, or they'll go do a deal with some of these other countries that are really like depraved on human rights. It's like during the Trump years, right, when Germany would criticize America for human rights or whatever, and then on the other hand, they'd go and they'd do a Russian oil deal, and then lecture us about how green their economy was.
Let's vote on that, shall we? It'd be interesting to see how the audience here interprets what's going on with this EU
And by the
headline.
way, I'm cool with both Spotify and Apple being jerks. Like, it's a pity they both can't lose.
What's your preferred music listening
I'm not a
service?
music. I'm not a music person.
Okay.
I have a girlfriend that plays the cello at like a world class level, so
Yep.
I just listen to her play music. That makes me much happier.
Do you consume podcasts though?
Not really, no. I mean, on occasion, if I know the person really well and I'm doing research, but I content myself with reading books, and being on Clubhouse, in this room. That's kind of it for me.
So let me read just a couple points here, and maybe we do a vote on this. It'd be interesting to see how the sentiment in the audience, because the EU Commission tweeted out, our preliminary view is that Apple's rules distort competition in the market for music streaming services by raising the cost of competing music streaming app developers. More on our statement of objections here. Nilay Patel from The Verge, the editor of The Verge, says the EU has found that Apple's App Store rules drive up music streaming prices, which, yes, if we dive into the details, Spotify was able to demonstrate that they had to raise their prices, while at the same time Apple was able to undercut them on their own platform, essentially. So anyways, the EU has found that Apple's App Store rules drive up the music streaming prices. Apple's response is to take credit for Spotify's success, ? Yeah, but let's see what people in the audience think. Is Apple fair with in dealing with Spotify, or does Spotify have a legitimate complaint? What do you think, Cal? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Is
if I can interrupt.
frame the question, somebody.
Yeah, somebody has a comment first. Was it Heyman?
Yeah, it was Griffin.
Griffin, go ahead. Welcome. Go ahead, Griffin.
Yeah, I just thank you. I had a quick question or interjection, real quick.
Yeah.
What's to stop them from doing this with Netflix because of their movie streaming service?
Precisely right. Yeah, here, and thank you. A brilliant point, which is it goes even much further than this, because when we get into, it's one thing on a phone and it's another thing on a laptop. It's a whole other thing when you get into the voice assistant speaker in your house and you say, hey, Siri, play me jazz. Okay, well, whose jazz is she going to play you? From which platform, right? So
I think the new version of Siri actually allows you to choose
it does.
which app.
It does.
My
yes.
HomePod just started playing jazz, Tyler. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Clarisse. But yeah, but it gets crazier. I mean, what if you have Google devices? Which streaming services you use, and it gets interesting when there isn't a visual interface and strictly an audio interface with that you interface with these things. And even more so when Spotify becomes, as I was starting to say, a bit of its own platform where they will have their own app store as they start adding their own new apps like this. Their own version of Clubhouse now will be integrated into Spotify. And that's an app within the Spotify ecosystem. And then you heard it here first. There's going to be lots of other apps in the Spotify App Store ecosystem as well. So
I just think it's amazing that people pay money to have listening devices in their homes that inform on them to major corporations. Like, I just find that, to my mind, it's like I've often wondered if somebody could just interview like Stasi officials, who are probably, some of them who are still probably around, and been like, hey, what do you think of like Siri and Alexa, and like what are your thoughts on those, fellas? Because it's like, it's so crazy. Like, I was over at a friend's house the other day, and he has like all of these different devices that are like listening to him, playing music, playing things, and it's like, of course they're recording all of his conversations, right? And where does all that data go? And how secure is it? And what happens if it's ever compromised? Can the government use that to then prosecute you? I mean, it's a very kind of crazy situation. So this is kind of why I try to stay off of all those things. And I'm well aware that like Clubhouse is informing on me too, but I figure given that it's informing to China, I figure I'm already in trouble with the Chinese.
Charles, do you have a question to frame for the
vote?
Apple versus Spotify?
Here's how I would think about the Apple versus versus Spotify question.
is, I mean, I don't know that it's a votable question insofar as like it seems to be more like great power politics of Europe versus America. And, I suppose the question would be like, do we favor the European approach, like GDPR, right, and antitrust, or do we favor sort of a more mega corporation American standard? I guess that would
Maybe
be how
that's
I
the
would think
discussion
about
we
it.
can have
Yeah,
afterwards, right? Because
yeah.
we
I don't
can
know.
just
I
kind
don't
of,
know how to vote on
yeah.
it though. You know what
Let's
I
go
mean? It's
simple.
sort of
Yeah.
a hard thing
Yeah,
to
no, I
vote
get
on.
it.
In fairness
I get it.
to both sides,
Yeah.
here's a tweet that kind of takes Apple's side in this. It says, more and more, it's getting frightening just how much politicians fail to understand technology and apply old style thinking to modern business challenges. All this decision does is ensure the death of platforms and leave us all stuck with two software ecosystems, iOS and Android. Mark Scott, I know quite well over at Politico. I knew him when he was at the New York Times. But he works out of the London office now for Politico. He runs the tech beat for Politico. He says his final thought is Apple's response to all of this is, number one, App Store costs, you got to pay for upkeep, and number two, Apple competes with Google, so there's a lot of competition. He's trying to make Apple's point in summary. Apple's point is, there is there's plenty of competition. We have Google to compete with, and so anyways, I think the question is should the EU leave it alone? If you were a country, would you leave it alone, or would you make changes similar to what the EU is doing to make it more friendly to your local startups? If we take Charles's perspective, that this is mainly to benefit the EU future unicorns,
I
or
think on this point, I'm sorry, on this point, I just wanted to provide a point of clarity that the European Commission is also considering the complaint filed by Epic Games, which is a US company.
yes.
And the primary concern here is not that it is a Swedish company, if you will. They're considering complaints from all market participants. So it's a false premise to suggest that it is a regional unicorn that they are also favoring.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think you're right. It's more the case that they want to limit the kind of power of the big American tech companies, not necessarily just
No, it's
benefit.
an Article 1 of a Treaty of Rome kind of thing, competition law here that's playing out more so than anything else. So I think there is a broader argument to suggest whether that's suitable or not.
Uh-huh. How if you were to phrase the question, how might you phrase it? If we were to vote, try and get some insight from the audience on this topic.
I think it's a fairness question. Should Apple be able to practice business as they see fit, or whether that is restrictive in terms of innovation?
Oh,
Apple's
yeah,
argument at the
Raman, you're my new favorite follow right here. Very eloquently put. Go ahead and I don't think I can improve on
Frame
what
the
you.
question. Frame the question, Raman.
Yeah, say it again, and so for the
Yeah,
people
frame it and then we'll vote on it. You're
for the
part of
people,
the community here.
go
Just
ahead
go
and
for
no.
it.
So I'm basically suggesting whether the practice is restrictive or whether it
right.
actually is
Okay.
open for
So just
innovation,
a
and
single
that's at
question.
the
So
heart of it.
Yeah,
right. So one question, the people will put their hand up to say yes or
yeah,
no.
Do they
Which
consider Apple's practices to be restrictive?
or fair. Yeah, raise your hand if you think Apple should be able to do as it does, and that you think Apple is fair as it is, or do you think it's restrictive? Okay, so number one, everyone put your hands down for now. And now raise your hand. Use the raise your hand key in the bottom right hand corner to come up on stage, just for voting purposes. If you think Apple is should be able to do as it has done, um, that there essentially isn't really a problem with how Apple operates um, its position.
Apple's practices are not restrictive. Put
Right,
your hand up.
right. If you're A-okay with it, so we're at 15, 16, 16, going once, going twice, 16. Okay, hands down, please. And now raise your hand if you think Apple's practices are restrictive to competitors such as Spotify and others, although not necessarily EU companies, to your point. Epic Games is also complaining, and they're not an EU company. And we're at 23. So it's 24, 25, 26, 31, 30, 32. So it's kind of 2-1, basically. Yeah, 32, 32. Yeah, so about 2-1. Okay, thank you for that, everybody. So
I
it's
just don't know. I mean, this is one of those things where it's like very hard to know, because I mean, one of the ways I would think about this that I think is sort of underexplored is to what extent are these companies using like European antitrust as basically a negotiating lever against Apple to carve out a special deal for themselves, right? And I think that that's kind of what's really going on here more than anything else. Um, and I think that's sort of how we should sort of understand. I mean, as Michael puts it, like, I mean, Spotify has a lot of power. Like, this is not like some like rink-and-dink mom and pop tech shop. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's some sense in which they're using the political levers of their countries or polity against an American.
Exactly what I was trying to say, which is that Apple, like these companies, somehow convince people that they're the same as, like, they're the mom and pop shop is the best way that I could have put it. Charles, thank you for giving me the context I was looking for. They're not mom and pop shops. Epic is no mom and pop shop. They're like literally an industry leader in graphics, and it's just like the way they position themselves like they have $800 to go to war with Apple is just, and people buy into it, and I'm just like, there are apps, this is absolutely a selfish move on their behalf, and they're able to position it this way to people, and people just buy into it, and I'm like, no, there are alternative motives here.
Well, I can tell you like how it works a little bit in the U.S. context in terms of political sort of pressure on tech companies. So, for instance, I've been a supporter in the past of the Republican Attorney General's Association, and I've helped them, not write legislation, but write like lawsuits going after Google and various other tech companies. And essentially, the way it works
I'll be right
is,
back. Keep it, Cal. If you could keep it going, I'll be right back.
yeah, the way it
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of works as a practical matter is that you meet a politician, they talk to you, you get to know them, maybe you're a donor, maybe you're not, and then before you know it, like, you're writing the regulations, and there's like very much a politicized process that takes place. And I suspect that occurs across the world, right, where there's like companies that are aligned with one faction or another faction, and there's money that goes a certain way, certain people get hired out of government to work for the corporations. So I don't know, it's just sort of like there's a lot more kind of at play here than I think we really realize.
100% in agreement, and that's literally what my point was. I get so everyone is all and the thing is, another point that was made, by the way, the other day in that MKBHD video is that these these companies that kind of get cannibalized by Apple for having a product on their platform, it's not just Apple's platform that their product is on. Apple just is the company that people focus on, but they go to survive on Google and Android and these other platforms who also put out their own versions and then kill off the company as well. Apple is only half of that. These other companies just never, no one ever gives a shit, or for some reason people don't care that these other companies kill off companies as well. They act like that's not happening.
I think it maybe has a little bit to do with the fact that Google has such a colorful logo, and but also from
Mm-hmm.
like gaming perspective, what I can say is that because Google is usually following what Apple decides, they get the backlash that they suffer is a lot, I think, less severe because
Mm-hmm.
Apple goes first, takes all of the all
He
of the bad rep for being a monopoly. And it is still an issue that we don't have, like, we don't feel that we get a lot of support as a developer, for
right.
instance, right? But again, like, those big companies like Epic go into battle, and then everybody says, well, like, Epic is fine, more or less, anyway. But I think there is, like, this long tail of everybody who wants to be able to build businesses today and in the future. And it's
Mm-hmm.
they're being so restricted by everything that one company decides, and literally they can decide, or two companies decide your whole destiny.
Right.
It's a bit tough in that sense,
Yeah, I'm
but
curious
I
about
get your
Amazon
point as
here.
well.
Very good points, Maria.
Maria and Michael and Charles, I'm just curious about Amazon because other than but obviously during the Trump era, there was a whole bunch of heat on Amazon. But generally speaking, is it a system, like, do they get away with a lot more? I don't know.
I mean, they definitely get away this year, right? Or last year, because they've supported a lot. Like, even though they've taken a lot of companies down by just, you know, generally either taking on the production of the same similar products and distributing them. But because of last year was so severe and distribution was key for anybody who wanted to sell anything, they've regained, I think, a lot of love, like public love, just because they allowed for a lot of people to stay afloat.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft and Amazon are American national champions.
Yeah.
You know, much the same way that that Boeing is in the United States, or Airbus, I suppose, or GlaxoSmithKline would be in France and Britain. And I
A
think
good
the CIA, when the CIA and the DoD, contracts with you in a massive way with your cloud hosting business, when you're Amazon, like it's very hard. Like you are a permanent feature of the government at that stage.
a good point that was just brought up, that someone was DMing me from the audience, is that he said Apple pretty much always advertises its ventures as Apple, and as a result, they take
Yeah.
the heat honestly. Whereas ABC, Google, and others deliberately remove their name and franchise out with other branding and marketing, which helps them hide their product involvement and influence.
Well, I don't think Amazon could even, I mean, that Apple could even pass a security review, given how, like, connected with China they are. Whereas, like, Microsoft and Amazon have a lot more connections with the security state, and so they're in a much better position in a way. Like,
There's also
so for instance, like, Tim Cook made a fetish of like not helping the FBI on the whole, breaking into the iPhone over the whole San Bernardino, Islamist killer, and that's just sort of like not something that I think Amazon. I mean, the Amazons and Microsofts of the world like very much enjoy being a part of helping the government.
there's also this argument that's going on in the news media here right now that China is doing the monopoly break. They're trying to look at the monopolies, right? And now Europe is also doing the same thing. But why is it the U.S. was not? We're not seeing too much of it. It's their argument is that because of the stock market boom, it allowed the firms to allocate a lot of cash and become donors to both the Republicans and Democrats. So they made them somewhat more immune than in the case of China or Europe.
One could look at it this way, right? Like, so the LinkedIn billionaire Reid Hoffman is the largest donor to Biden, for
Mm.
instance, and LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft. And you could look at, tech policy under Biden. I think his donors, like, they're something like 4x the numbers from 2016 are venture capitalists. So that kind of gives you a sense of it.
So, did we cover Amazon quarter report in
Well,
about?
we just actually transitioned to Amazon. We were just talking about the all the big guys, and
Yeah.
so yeah, Amazon might be a good. Just they had their earnings yesterday,
Yep.
so that was.
And I mean,
What a
it's
boss Jeff Bezos is, right? Like, what a
yeah,
boss! Like,
yeah,
leaving with like an all time, hitting his own personal
That's an
record.
ideal time to leave. You're right.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
he's still there. He leaves like in when is it October or something? No, I don't know.
44% growth year over year, and now they've got Amazon retail. I mean, e-commerce rather. AWS cloud hosting is the dominant player, so they somewhat dominate both of those categories. And now Prime Video, like where they're starting to go into the content game, head to head with Apple and the other, competing for
Amazon's
eyeballs.
definitely going to go into genetics and health next with
Mm.
Amazon Cares.
Yeah, the
Well, we
Emma.
That's
actually, Charles,
hungry.
we talked about that in the morning a little bit,
Oh,
right?
we
Well,
did.
we didn't talk
Okay.
about that. No, no, no. I mean, no, no. This is good conversation because I think that subscription model that they have, the 20 million, they're basically serving all the needs, right? You start to get to all the needs, and the health needs are within that membership, right? So
Well,
you've got entertainment, you've got,
Yeah, 'cause
utilities,
One could imagine a world in which Amazon, sequences you, right, and then has your purchasing history plus your genetics, and then sort of cross-references those two things. And there are sort of famous examples of Amazon knowing that somebody's teenage daughter was pregnant before her parents did.
Mm.
One could imagine that applied to health as well. And I don't. It's a very weird question of whether or not I'd even be for that. On some level, I suppose I would be, but it's a very interesting company. I mean, they how to put this? They're basically like the Borg, or like an ant colony almost. It's like very hard to even know like who actually even makes decisions there. It's just a very fascinating place, and I must tell you, every day I
That turned out
basically
to be false, though, right? Like falsely suggested she was pregnant.
yeah, no, it turns out they were right. Actually, I think
Yeah,
that was the issue.
the
The
dad
father
was
claimed,
arguing that she wasn't, but she was. Yeah.
yeah, but she
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yes, I think that's right. And so anyway, I would just say, I've done a lot of hosting increasingly with Amazon. When we built Clearview, we did it without using Amazon because we were afraid that in using Amazon they would spy on us and discover us and then crush us, which I think was the right decision. But now when it comes to a lot of genetic data, you really have a choice of like Microsoft, Amazon, or Google for cloud services in a serious way when it comes to genetic data. And I think Amazon, I mean, look, they give you the same level of security if you pay for it that the CIA does on health data. So it's like, I think I'm going to go with them. But it's an interesting question.
And there's two things that we didn't talk about with Amazon's recent reports. I mean, Amazon's ad business, I was surprised. They had a 73% rise to
77.
77 or
Yes.
73? I'm not sure.
77.
77. Okay. Okay. The article here is 73, and it says to $6.9 billion. So I wasn't even sure that they had a huge advertising business.
No, and it's categorized as other. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
main business for them, right?
Right.
But it is growing fast.
Yeah.
Well, this
And
is
the other one is, sorry.
yeah. To move
Yeah.
the when you have a ship as big as Amazon, you need incredibly huge opportunities of new business arms to make a dent. So, like healthcare is one of those areas they can go into that that is so huge economically that it would have an impact. And then that's the question: is where do they go from here, and how do they leverage the fact that they are the biggest cloud provider? For example, Amazon knows how every startup is doing. All the startups that use AWS, Amazon's investment team, which I'm very close with, based out of London, they know how every startup is doing far better than any VC investor.
Right.
So they could
They're
become
at
the
every
best.
hackathon.
They could be. They
Same,
could
same with Stripe
if they
too.
really wanted to play gangster style, they could start heavily investing in the startups that they don't even need to bother with a pitch meeting. They're like, look, we have your AWS data. We know exactly how you're doing. So it would be an
They do
unfair.
And
do
let me
that.
build
They do
build
do
let
that
me
in the
build on
government
something,
tech
Charles. Oh,
space.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they do
Yeah,
that in the government tech space. Just so you know.
I
Well,
was
I
going to
mean,
build on
my
something you
point
said earlier, Charles.
my point is
Oh,
that they could do this in other contexts other than investing in startups, which is like how could they use their cloud infrastructure in interesting ways? They
Good point.
and their e-commerce structure in interesting ways, and now they're branching off into owning the delivery rather than being dependent on UPS and FedEx. If they own the delivery arm, and then they bought Jamie, my buddy's Ring.com, and now they got the cameras in your house, and then they can open your door and put the shit in your fridge for you.
And they're detecting your heart rate and all kinds of crap using
He said,
using the
"Put the shit in the fridge for you."
it's so crazy.
They are starting to
and
do
no,
that,
no,
by the way.
Yeah.
No, it's
the
just the
thing,
way you worded it. Put the shit in the fridge for you.
no, but yeah, but the thing that's it could be scary or exciting is to build on Charles's point earlier. They work like ants, right? Like it's not ants. That their entire innovation engine is not what other organizations understand, right?
Invasive species.
It's like you took Silicon Valley, you put a circle around it and called it a company, right? That's kind of the
Mm.
closest way I can think about it. And then
No,
with
they're
an
much better.
internal market of capital, internal market of ideas moving around, and then once in a while they see something really on fire and they put more fuel into it, like if you like, right? And that's a hard thing to compete against, right?
Yeah, I think there's something very different about the Amazon and Microsoft ecosystem than the Silicon Valley one. I think it's more like, so Jeff Bezos' grandfather was the number 4 employee at DARPA, right? And the other day, you had President Joe Biden announce that he wanted a DARPA for health, and this is like right around the time in which we know Amazon Care is really like stepping it up, and I can't imagine that given all the tech people around Joe Biden and around his speech writing. I mean, Ron Klain is chief of staff. Used to work for Steve Case of AOL fame. As I mentioned, Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn billionaire, is the biggest donor to Biden. And I can't imagine that, like a stray mark of like a DARPA for health. I mean, of course, that's where Amazon's going, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. And the question becomes, how are they going to do this in a way that kind of keeps their trust up, right? Because it's one thing if you fail to deliver a package, which Amazon never really fails to do, for me at least. But it's quite another thing if you give people bad health information.
Well,
But they're actually smart because of the pill, right? They got the pill already, delivery service.
Diagnostics.
Yeah.
They got touch points every day with rural customers where they can get diagnostics daily.
Oh my
Health
god!
products.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Check! Oh shit! This is crazy. So, if Amazon already is able to come to your house within an hour or two, right? Okay, and then apply that to medicine, where we talk about how Amazon is a cloud-based company first, and then it's gotten so big that and used the data so effectively that they are now starting to have physical presence in the real brick and mortar world in the form of supermarkets, but if they get into medicine and they start out as a cloud-based medical company first, they already have the people on the ground who could bring you the medicines in near real time, and potentially partner with medical professionals who would join Amazon's ranks of doctors and whatever, who, if need be, they could send them to your house in an hour or two, and it would totally flip the entire medical industry on its head, where Amazon Prime, who I'm going to make a prediction, Amazon Prime will eventually include your health insurance.
Yep.
Well, now the
Tyler.
only question is actually if the Amazon team was the ones who bought the cloudclinics.com domain.
But check,
Tyler,
aren't they already going into that with the? I thought that was the plan. They're practicing on their internal employees.
They are, yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, so
and then the head of Philips just left Philips to go to Amazon.
Yeah, but let's unpack this medical thing though, because it's so huge. Which is, you're right, they're testing it on their own employees, eating their own dog food, as we call it.
Tyler, they're not just practicing it on their own employees; they've opened it as a service for small
Amazon Care
businesses.
Yeah. Right.
So Tyler,
Amazon Care can be bought by a startup tomorrow for their own employees for simple primary care.
My point is they will introduce some kind of device that you can wear as a sensor of some kind while you sleep or whatever, like the Aura Ring or something, and it will tie into a telemedicine type where you can call a doctor on demand when you want to, as part of Amazon Prime, and as part of this, if need be, they can send whatever is prescribed to your door within a couple hours, and if need be, a doctor to your door in a few hours, and then they become much more effective than the conventional medical system, and then you're doing your health insurance through them, because the health insurance in America is so totally screwed, but Amazon's at such a large scale where they, due to the economics of scale, they could give you a very compelling competing health package option where doctors come to your house, which, my God, that's such a premium service.
House calls.
But remember, they got Echo. They got Echo, right? They got all the Echoes units all over the place. So they could do video.
So basically, Tyler, what he's saying is next time when I order a pizza, let's say pepperoni with cheese, I'm going to get a response saying, sorry, you have a high blood pressure.
That's right.
Take the cheese off you, sir.
Correct.
But you know what?
And then if I say, no, it's okay, I take in my blood pressure medicine, they will say, sorry, we checked your medical record. You actually missed it last 3 months. You haven't taken it, sir. And it's just going to go on and on, right?
The Amazon.
And like, what's the
that's
chances
that's
that
part of your
cut
Prime
your
membership.
health insurance because
I
of
remember one time, Tyler. This is over a decade ago at this point, but I remember one time when I had a gallstone, and I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. I thought I was dying. I did a Facebook Live and said goodbye to everyone, and I love them.
Goodbye world.
I swear to God, it's still on my old Facebook. But
you always been a drama queen, Michael.
I'm gonna go check.
Michael, do you get reminders of it every year or two that it goes by?
But anyways, someone who was watching the live called the police and were like, "Hey, he needs help." and they called me and asked me if I wanted an ambulance, and I was like, "How much is that going to cost?" And because it was like $10,000 to get an ambulance,
Yeah.
but the point that I'm making here, and then when I got to the hospital, and the overnight charge ended up being $18K, and it was ridiculous. But my point here is that's fucking ridiculous. No one night of a gallstone should end up racking up, a year of
Yep.
college tuition, and college tuition shouldn't even rack up to that. But the point is, Amazon could genuinely rock the entire
That's what I'm saying.
corrupted industry of health for sure with all of this.
Well,
Hey,
given
If they
Tyler, is
wanted
there
to.
any way? Tyler, is there any way Heyman and I can maybe do a breakout type room on this?
oh
Because
Fuck
this is
yes,
yeah.
Sure.
we
That
have
would be
totally.
some
great.
really good insight on this,
Oh yeah,
Yep.
from industry professionals. Yeah.
and Japanese friends too who have
That would be great,
insights.
Chris. You
Yeah.
guys should do that, Heyman,
Michael,
Chris.
Michael, are you saying that Amazon is going to also dispatch ambulance?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is my point is if they were smart, they would get a company. Because think about it, they
They're
could
working on that.
they could charge literally $500, still be making insane profits, but force the entire industry to its knee. Because these people are charging insane amounts
But
for these
Michael,
types of services.
You'll
what
be
I
taken
don't
to
get is,
hospital in like a Prime delivery van.
Yes.
but
You
I
know,
no
Mr.
seriously
Simpson,
though.
I'm here to take you to the hospital and deliver the
autonomous.
5 packages.
It's an autonomous self-driving ambulance that gets
And to what
dispatched.
Charles was and to what Charles was
They're
saying
working.
about privacy, because he said he doesn't use these things because they're listening. But people like me, you all know how I feel about it. I'm happy to trade my price. I'm not doing anything. I don't care if I'm their best entertainment, whatever. Listen to me, but I'm happy for that in exchange for certain conveniences. I don't mind if it's making what I'm getting advertised, things that I actually am thinking about going out to buy. If it's making it so that I can literally, if something, God forbid, but if something did happen and I was stuck in the middle of my room or living room or something, and I genuinely had like something stuck on my leg or whatever, and I could speak out and just tell, like I like telling my watch right now, if I could just say, "Hey Siri, set this shit up, get me out of here," whatever. Or talking people who have these dots in their house, in these Google
Echo
products and
Dots.
these Amazon products. I think these are conveniences that I'm good trading my privacy with. Not everybody will be, and I'm sure even the majority wouldn't be at first. But for me, I'm absolutely on board with being a first generation user of something like that, because I think in times of peril that could be extremely helpful.
Hey,
I got some
wait.
insight. I
Well,
got
It
some
sounds
Chris,
insight
like
into
the
this.
blue
we'll
pill.
we'll
Hey,
Hey,
work
that's a,
with
hey,
you
Tyler.
on building.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. Is Dr. Heidi in the house? And if Manaz, welcome on stage. You appear to, thankfully, have a background related to the conversation. So I'd love to give you the floor to share your thoughts because you had your hand up. I think Cal brought you up actually, but I was eyeballing
Yes.
you as well. And glad to have you here. And if Dr. Heidi's here, she might be
And
soon.
Tyler, this is
Tyler, she's
John.
not in
Heidi's not
yet.
here yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
call
This
her.
is Manaz.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, Cal. Thank you, Tyler,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, for a great discussion. Yes, I was listening. Very fascinating discussion. We had a discussion in another room regarding how we can improve the healthcare payment. And I think as I'm listening to you, this is what I think we can fix our payment system. And I see Amazon going to that direction, hopefully. So, as an employee in United States, you pay for a family of 4, you pay around $800 a month for your health insurance. And when you do your primary care, which is your annual physical, it costs you at most around $200. So imagine the money that you spend on a healthcare that you don't use. But let's go to the old days when you were going to the doctor. You just paid for the service that you were receiving. And if Amazon can deliver that, even though I'm a healthcare worker, and I know I have the insurance company is paying big portion of the income of the healthcare, different setting depending on what level of the healthcare you're looking at. But if they go that route, definitely I'll definitely go and apply for that service, because I believe the healthcare can be fixed and can be improved and efficient if we overcome this ridiculous payment service that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. This is Manaz, and I'm done talking.
Well, you keep going. What else
Tyler,
do
this
you
is
I
think?
John.
can go on. I can go on days, but I didn't want to,
Okay, let's give John.
take anybody's time.
Please stay put. But John, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so this is an area I have
Yeah.
a lot of tentacles into, and just saying, Crossover Health has a relationship with Amazon now, and Crossover Health would be a significant move in the direction you were suggesting, Tyler. The only issue with Crossover Health is that their founder and CEO, who was on Clubhouse recently, stated that their business model and their target population is pretty high end, and that they might have to retool their business architecture and platform in order to have a broader reach than they currently do. But Amazon is experimenting with Crossover Health precisely for the reasons you mentioned.
This is really interesting because Amazon understands the importance of kind of good software behind good logistics, which I think the medical system suffers from kind of an incompatibility of a
Yeah,
hodgepodge of different systems, which
Right, exactly.
a lot of the
perhaps
EHRs
Tyler,
store their data
yeah.
hey
on
Tyler,
Yeah.
AWS.
there was something I wanted to say on this actually.
Go, Griffin.
My friend actually, he's a good friend of mine. He's a pharmacist, and he was saying exactly what you were talking about. That Amazon is getting into the business. Everyone's been trying to block them since like 2019, and trying to stop them from getting into the health insurance and to the medical distribution channels.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of different pharmacy companies and health insurance companies that have been trying to block them, and they're unsuccessful as of a few months ago, from what I
Well, of
hear.
course they're trying to block them. You can, I mean, think about how disruptive this would be to the. This is the same reason that we
What
don't.
I
We
was
used
saying is
to.
they failed a few months ago.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, we had this situation in Los Angeles. This is why the electric car is just now starting up, and this is why we don't have a lot of you that have come to LA think that we don't have a subway system, but we have a very interesting. It's just like New York's, but all the different car companies bought up sections and closed that shit down so that they can make money off of automotive, and it's the same thing that we're seeing now with healthcare, and they're trying to block Amazon and all these other companies that have the means and the status to be disruptive and quite frankly, it's this is the kind of shit that really pisses me off about our country is it's all about profit before people, and it really bothers me.
Vested interest. It's unfortunately the part. And the other interesting thing is companies like Walmart, what they do now, and we'll probably go over it in another room, but if you're a Walmart employee and you get a heart attack or you need heart surgery, they're flying you to the Cleveland Clinic. They pick the best centers in the world, negotiate contracts, and essentially send their employees on a healthcare vacation whenever they need treatment. And you're going to see this model evolving where, the biggest healthcare buyer is the employers, and that's hard to see, but ultimately that's who moves the needle in healthcare. So Amazon, as an employer themselves, also have a ton of self-interest because they need to also insure their workforce,
Right.
and they don't have a locally regionalized workforce such as
Right.
some companies like Amazon up in Seattle. They're distributed.
Right.
Disney did this because they're huge in Orlando, and they bought two healthcare systems, or they went with two healthcare systems, ran them head to head, and went with the winner because they knew which one would treat their employees better and
That's
therefore
amazing.
save them money. So
But
That's
yeah, this is
amazing.
very complex, and
but
it's the
think
quarter of the economy.
think about how
Which
many employees Amazon has around the U.S. now. It's like the biggest employer one of the biggest employers in the U.S. To the degree where, especially if they start starting to eat into all of the drivers, if they start taking over the UPS and FedEx driver roles, how many people that will add to their payrolls, and then as a result of that, even if they just did this only for their employees, it would be worth doing. But no doubt they'll kind of figure out all of the fine details before they roll it out.
Everybody's
Well,
always
it's
complaining
there.
that the U.S. doesn't have socialized healthcare, but we're getting it right now through
Yeah.
these companies.
Well, Tyler, if you've ever worked in an Amazon facility like I have,
Mm-hmm.
and done the physical labor there, you can point out the millions of OSHA violations that they actually have with inside their facility.
Mm.
So it just kind of
Hey,
it kind of
Alonzo, that is a great friggin'
Mm.
point, and please harp on it as much as they will allow you, because at the
I
end of
don't
the,
care, dude.
please do.
Yeah, I don't care to harp on it as much. They can do it,
No,
whatever.
no, no. Like
Yeah,
I'm amping you up on this because let's talk about that. Let's because
I'll just
yeah,
tell you, I used to train safety and stuff at UPS. You know, I was in HR for a decade there, and you know, I took Amazon as a quick, you know, job to try to transition into a state that I moved at. You know, I moved from one state to another, and I was like, okay, Amazon's always hiring. Let me just, you know, get my hands dirty and do some physical labor. And I'm going to tell you, since I've been there, I've hurt my back and my hand.
yeah.
It's absolutely atrocious. They got their bins there that
I
are
have a
very low to the ground. You're lifting them constantly, throwing them to the
I have
ground.
a
They want you
family
to go.
member that was sexually assaulted by their frisking lines during one of their frisking lines. Basically, you get frisked on the way in and on the way out, and the regulators can't do anything about it because they're too big. And they basically essentially treat themselves as if they're a small country. And if you're working in the warehouse, you are first and foremost an Amazon warehouse worker and an American with rights second.
Hey, Alonzo, is it
And this is why
what happens if you do get injured there? Do they have their own kind of medical staff to address issues that happen when you get injured there, or are they sending you to traditional hospitals, or how's that happen?
Yeah, I,
The experience that I had there was kind of atrocious. I actually just had to walk in there and demand that I get the injury report from them, because what Amazon will try to do to you is if you, especially if you hurt your back or something. In
Right.
my experience, this is
Right.
my
Yeah.
experience. They will try to shove.
This is super super important, because what I'm thinking is it's in their interest that they have their own doctors on hand so that they can control all the information rather than you.
Alonzo,
Right.
can I ask Alonzo? Yes, exactly. Can I
And
ask
that's
you a question,
exactly what
Alonzo?
they're doing. That's exactly what
That's
they're
what I
doing,
thought.
Tyler.
Yeah. So they have a very strong
And may
interest in becoming the hospital essentially for
so
their
from
own.
yeah,
Tyler, I would like to add
may I please
something
ask a
here.
question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
May I
I
please
would
ask a
like to
question?
add something here. Oh,
Oh,
go
Thank
ahead. I'm sorry.
go,
yeah.
Greg, and
Well,
then
thank you.
Manas.
No,
Yeah.
I don't mean yeah, exactly. I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry. But Alonzo, I just want to ask you a question. When you did that, was there blowback? Like, i.e., did you feel like there was any, there are consequences for speaking up and saying that you're injured and using this program. Am I correct in that?
Of course. I mean, you know, the same guy that did my injury report, when I walked into the office to ask for that, because it's my right. I mean, I'm an old HR guy, so I know what my rights are. So when I walked in and asked for my injury report, they looked at me like I was a ghost, bro, and they scattered
Yeah,
everywhere, you know?
exactly. Yeah,
Funny.
they really hate it when somebody knows their rights. They really hate it. And Alonzo, I like I not I've followed you. I think I've seen you around before. But like I have a family member who has exactly the same story. You can get sexually assaulted even if you're a man. And the fact is that the moment that you report it and exercise your rights as an American, you get blackballed. You get treated like you're exactly like a ghost. And now your opportunities to move up in the company, it's basically like we have these little, fascist socialist kingdoms inside of America in the form of these big companies, and Amazon is a great example. And Alonzo, like, look, he seems like a tough dude to me. It's not that he's sitting here complaining. He's just pointing out that the moment that he exercised his rights, like a friggin' baller, like you're basically done. And now look at how much they control. And if you do that at any of these big companies, you're done if you exercise your rights. So
Manas.
No,
it's bullshit.
Yeah. After Manaza, I want to chime in as well.
Yeah. Manas.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. I just want to add something. I think with the Cure Act 21, when it went live on April 5th this year, it gives power to any patient in any environment to take their information to any other providers outside. Let's say if you feel like your employer and the network that they have, that they provide care to you for any incident happening at work, and you're not happy and you feel like is unfair, with the Cure Act, they don't own your data. They don't own your information anymore. You have the right, without any barrier or any cutting corner, to take that information out of that network and get different, opinion, get an different consult. And I think it's very important that we educate any citizen about the right when it comes to the healthcare and how they can protect themselves. But at the same time, back to what Amazon doing, if you're just looking at overall the healthcare, there is no any doctor to come and say, hey, I made a mistake, during the surgery or misdiagnosis. It's always, we have to, even I work as a healthcare worker, I have to look after myself when I go to the doctor to make sure I get the right, feedback, I get my results correctly, there is no any error. So, and this is very important any human being. It doesn't matter what part of the world we live. We need to know our right. But definitely with the Cure Act, I think at the same time, it gives more power to any patient to take their information anywhere that they want it to go. Thank you. This is Manaz, and I'm done talking.
That's a great point because it is. Sorry, Matt. I'll be brief. That's a great point. It is amazing that you can do this, and that's the type of right that we should be fighting for. But if part of your pay is in the form of healthcare, then you don't necessarily have the spare resources to go to that other doctor and pay them what they need to be paid. And Matt, sorry, I'll throw to you.
No, totally agree. And I was
I'm
gonna.
sorry, just want to add, and then you have out of network, because any insurance is required to give you an option if you want to use in network or out of network. For out of network, you pay a copay, right? But it's worth it if I feel like I have been treated or have not been giving the right treatment
No, HMO plans
in
don't have
network.
that. HMO plans
Oh.
don't have that. That is true if you're on a PPO in many cases, but HMO plans are increasingly saying if you go out of network, it's your responsibility. Sorry, Matt.
No, I agree with Greg, and actually, I'll take that thread and take it one step further. So, like, the one other thing to kind of think about, and Alonzo, if you can kind of clarify, a lot of Amazon workers are not Amazon employees. Employees, you get employee-sponsored health insurance. If you're a contractor, they don't have to provide you anything, technically. So that's another kind of important distinction. And I think someone who knows more about this, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the Amazon workforce is contract worker, not necessarily employees who don't
Yep.
actually, that doesn't actually come in with even the promise of health insurance.
You're talking about especially like their driver force. They work for the
Yeah.
independent contractors for
And
sure.
seasonal
Yeah,
workers as
and
well.
when you start, typically you start off as a seasonal. Typically there's a holding period before they actually bring you on as an official Amazon employee. So I actually started in a new facility and was a seasonal employee for a period of time, and then became an actual Amazon employee. But I believe the rate of speed that I became an actual Amazon employee was just move faster just because it was a new facility.
Well, and they dangle
Yeah.
healthcare at you as something that you should aspire to get by becoming a full-time employee. And the value of this healthcare is huge. But at the same time, like it is the healthcare that they choose to give you, and it's kind
Good
of in,
news.
in the specific way that they choose to give it. And if you want to go out of network, you don't actually have enough spare money to go do that.
Can
Yeah,
I jump in here?
and when you actually get hurt there too, they actually have a list of providers that you actually have to choose
Yeah.
from that they
Yep.
give you.
Narrow network, exactly.
Yeah, can I jump in here? This is Heisam, and I work actually in the medical field. I'm a doctor. And I just have been listening and have a couple of points about the things that have been raised. The first thing about the CARES Act, although in essence it was thought to basically help patients sort of move their data, they always had that ability to request their patient records and actually take that data and see other
That's true.
individuals. The problem with the CARES Act is actually patients in real time are actually watching doctors document in their charts, which is making it actually really difficult for us actually to communicate with one another. Because there are some things that you want to actually put in the chart that the patient should not be able to access in real time. And I will give you an example. So I ended up seeing a psychiatric patient. I was basically assessing whether or not they had bipolar disorder or whether they had major depressive disorder, and was documenting that they were psychotic. And the patient literally walked out of the room, pulled up the note, and came back to the room and was like, "I can't believe you think that I'm psychotic."
That's a great point.
And so it's actually prevented doctors from actually documenting explicitly with what is happening and communicating with one another, which is actually what the medical records it has an intention to do, as well as making sure that patients know sort of what has happened.
You
On the
should be able
second
to have.
point,
Hey, Hisam, I don't want to interrupt you to keep you from going, but you should be able to have a way to have a private note to yourself about a patient. I do think they should have some say in what you transmit to other doctors, but having them be able to come back because you wrote a private note to yourself or something like that, I don't know. The solution to this is
yeah,
complex. I wish I could bring Dr. Stacy into
yeah,
this to talk
and
about
I will just
with you.
say, I will say legally they have access
Just
to
like to,
they can get all that information.
I'm sorry, let me clarify something. The CARE Act is different from the Cure Act. Thank you.
Okay, and the second point I would like to make here is, like, anytime an employer has access to all of your medical records, it's a really dangerous thing, because they can limit and work with doctors that they know are more conservative, or may be on their side, or may be employed by them, which changes their bias, right? Because who you
Exactly.
work for changes how you perceive things. And
Yeah,
there's a reason
you're
why
human.
Amazon is busy trying to enter this medical space, because I think they are disenfranchising employees. And we have seen this happen multiple times before with Amazon, and healthcare will be no different. The third point is that health systems are getting into insurance because they actually make more money on insurance than they do actually delivering care. And a good example of that is UPMC, where their insurance far outpaces what actually happens for their medical care. So they are incentivized to not actually give you the care, even at their own institution. And so this is Heisem, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, when Stacy was at Kaiser, Hisam, basically it was an exercise in her fighting the machine that was trying to give less psychological and psychiatric care to their patients, because it's seen as a cost center, and not as something that they should provide. And the idea that Kaiser is a nonprofit is just laughable. I mean, and so I think I'm chiming in and echoing your point here, not making a new one. You couldn't be more correct, and I think we need to talk more about this point, forever and ever, while we try to trust these companies. Look, it's not even that the doctors that are joining and doing these things are bad people. It's just that they're biased like everybody else by who's paying them money. It's really hard to bite the hand that feeds you. And sometimes you need to for the betterment of society, but we can't ask everybody to always be in a position where they're fighting on that level. Like sometimes you need to eat, and it's really hard. It's really, really, really hard.
Let me give you some insight on the. Sorry, Tyler.
Go ahead,
I
Heyman.
found I looked into the health jobs that are opening up in Amazon, and that gives you a good insight into what they're planning, right? So it's basically they're going to go into behavioral health. It seems they want a principal project manager to implement behavioral health through their Amazon ecosystem. The other one is also health centers. They want someone to lead that, to work with internal stakeholders and external vendor partners to improve and expand Amazon's health centers. They also want security and compliance leads. So it's Amazon Web Services. This is actually for. Also, they also want a architect worldwide, public sector solutions, health architect. And they also are planning Amazon Alexa. They want software engineers for that area as well.
Brilliant.
Scribing. Yeah,
Brilliant.
so and then everybody in this room, just know this, okay? This is Chris. Your data belongs to you. The largest monetizing element of the healthcare system, besides the delivery of services or care, is actually in the data. They use the data to fight each other. Data helps them fight each other in acquisition costs. It adds the pain to the patients. And they use the data to sell to drug companies to obtain clinical trial data on you. So when you get your data back, use that data to empower yourself. Sell it. That's Tyler. If you want the next unicorn, find a
Hey,
way for
Chris.
us to take our data and sell that to the insurance companies and the
Chris.
healthcare system, and we'll kick some ass.
Chris, we got to be careful with that because the
Hmm.
value of data is a power law. So 1,000 people's data is not really worth that much. One
Hmm.
person's data is worth almost nothing compared to what millions is starting to get to be worth something, and billions of people's data is worth more than the entire planet. Like
That's for
maybe
drug
like
research, especially.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's
So
like it's
so so it's
but
really
figure out a
hard though
way to.
because yeah, we need to basically take the billions number and make sure that that's distributed evenly. Because but one
what's unique
person
is
selling their data won't do it, or even all of us here on Clubhouse selling our data and banding together won't do it.
understood,
Though it does help with consumer
but
sales, though,
create a
because McKesson,
marketplace.
yeah, yeah, exactly, for the marketplace part, because McKesson is the largest distributor of drugs and health products, right, in North America. And they've been buying up, in Canada, they bought up Rexall pharmacies. So they have a front end, right? They're B2C now. They're always B2B, but now they're B2C. Now, they were supplying most of Amazon's products. I'm not sure what Amazon's going to do to them soon, right? Because Amazon knows exactly what people were buying. I know for a fact that when we're in clinics, we're technically looking on Amazon for the product so we can show to the patient saying, okay, this is the kind of product you should get, right? And oftentimes, what do you think will happen? The patient goes home and buys it from Amazon. They're not going to go to the local store that's far away or something to get it from a
The
McKesson supply
unpriced
person.
externality, the
Yeah,
unpriced externality of owning everybody's data is
yeah.
trillions and trillions of dollars a year. And we aren't distributing that to the people. And basically these companies are buying it at bottom dollar and
If
getting
you
the
have
greatest deals
cancer,
because of their, yeah, but you get
Mm.
what I mean, Chris?
if you have cancer, your data should be funding your care because
Yeah,
Mm.
it's worth
exactly.
that value to the company, right?
But here's
Right?
the
Like
Exactly.
if the
check this.
company's going to charge you 200K for your drugs, that means it's got a real
I
value.
I
So the
love that,
data that
Michael. I love that,
No,
Michael.
the
I
data
sorry.
that
love it.
drives
No, I
the
love it.
data that drives that but look, is worth
Neurons connecting.
200,000.
So there's also the data
Neurons
that
connecting.
if Amazon, they own a supermarket, they own the delivery, it would be the first case where the doctor or the hospital actually has a record of everything, all the food that you've purchased. Could itself be interesting. Also interesting if they, and I would almost
Can
predict
I
that they will buy some kind of sensor, either a ring or something that
can I give
gives
a
them more
conspiracy
data.
theory?
Um,
Can
uh,
I give a conspiracy theory?
yeah. Hold on, but before you do,
Ooh, play the music.
they have
Seriously.
they currently have 175 million Prime members. I would love to poll the audience to see, would you consider having Amazon as your health insurance in the future? But before we do that, I would love to ask like Matt and Heyman and Hassam and the other folks with medical
And I pulled
Yeah,
backgrounds.
up Hala as well.
Tyler, this is John.
By the way,
Yeah,
This is
one
John.
second.
I'm
I also pulled
yeah.
up Hala up here. She's from the UK. I think she
yeah,
runs a pharmaceutical consumer digital business, so
yeah.
that's
Welcome,
useful too.
welcome, Hala.
Yeah,
Amazon has
welcome.
PillPack.
Yeah, this
So
is John. If I could just chime in on a
Sure.
couple things. So I'm actually the founder of the XML standard for interoperability and health record exchange,
Oh, nice.
known as the CDA and CCD, and have been engaged in data management, privacy in healthcare for decades. Couple of quick things. There's a common misconception that the emphasis, and I'm a big supporter of personal health records where people take back control over the distribution of their data. I think it's a really promising arena, and there are well over a dozen companies that are pretty far along with that, and some of them are very, very directly building an infrastructure and an architecture where they can allow you to monetize your data. There's a whole bunch of them that are doing that, increasingly so. But the misconception that most people have is that the right to have access to your data equals the right to be the sole proprietor of your data. That's not true. There are laws that require physicians and hospitals with specific periods of time to retain the data for a variety of purposes. for payment purposes, for optimizing operations, and for liability claims. So the patient has the legitimate right and should exercise it, and will increasingly,
John,
to be able to distribute it, but not necessarily to own it exclusively
Right.
in that way. Yeah,
John,
Greg.
can we talk about the one of the effects of that, which is on sole proprietors? Those laws are extraordinarily difficult to comply with, and quite easy for in comparison for large healthcare organizations to comply with, because they basically have a compliance department. They put together the technology, and to retain notes and do all these types of things. But as somebody who has set up the system to comply with the letter of the law for a sole proprietor, I have to say that this is regulatory capture at its finest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dr. Heidi, welcome. As you can no doubt tell, we are talking about the future of health in America as it relates to Amazon's ambitious plans, which Heyman gets the MVP so far today for digging into their job listings, which was quite revealing.
Brilliant.
Yes, and about their incredibly ambitious plans, which ties everything from Alexa to AWS and leveraging their pre-existing assets. And the question is, they have
Oh,
100.
Heyman can use Google and he gets the gold star. I'm just
Yes.
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm prideful. I'm
No,
prideful, and
no,
I
I
need you
actually
to
went through
crush my
different layers.
ego.
Greg, you
Crush
can
my
use
ego.
it too, Greg.
Yeah.
I
And
get
then,
some gold stars.
and then something else that wasn't mentioned is also surgeon data. On the flip side of the coin, when surgeries are recorded, minimally invasive surgeries are recorded, whose data does that belong to? Because to my understanding, more often than not, it's actually formalized as the hospital's data, not the surgeons or the patients. I'm done talking.
I have to be very careful what I say here, but I've talked a lot with Amazon about genetic sequencing. And there's probably a reason we've had that conversation in the last 6 months
Okay.
that way.
To
Just so,
to answer to
I missed you,
Those are words
buddy.
I don't want to hear together. Amazon and genetic sequencing.
What could be the worst case scenario there, Charles?
well, I would just say, hypothetically speaking, if
Or
you were Amazon,
or
you
best
absolutely,
case? Yeah, from their
or
perspective, what's the best case scenario?
oh, the best case scenario is we wipe out private insurance in the United States. Everybody gets genetically sequenced. That's just how it goes. And
But could not Amazon say, "Hey, look, great, we have this new program for Amazon Prime Medical. It's only $99 a year. It includes a DNA test kit, just like 23andMe, on us, complimentary, right? And just a coincidence that you're signing up for our health program. But we just want you to know about your genetics. But of course, they can use,
Tyler.
yes.
Well, look, between you, me, and Charles,
Yeah.
I think that Charles is the guy that believes everything is based on genes,
Yep.
like nature,
Yep.
and I'm the guy that believes that it's nature and nurture.
Yep.
And you're the guy that's allowing us to battle each other here on stage and moderating. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm the economic conspiracy theorist.
But is it nature and nurture, or is it mostly just nature,
I think it
or
depends.
mostly just nurture?
It depends on, it's case by case, I think.
Okay,
Watch the
say
movie
more.
Three
I want
Perfect.
to know what you think.
Yeah.
Watch the movie Three Perfect Strangers, triplets that were raised apart as an
Yep.
experiment without their
Tyler,
consent, and how their outcomes
yes.
were profoundly different because of nurture.
Yeah.
Yes,
well,
Tyler.
I actually have a
I want to
critique of
pin
that
you down
movie because
here.
of like,
I want to pin you down here, Tyler,
Sure.
because you're a really good moderator.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the rooms,
Yep.
but I also have appreciated it even more when you tell me what you really think about this. Can you go into your personal opinions on nature versus nurture and how it's individual, and expound on that a little bit for us?
It's super, super, super complex, and I think it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about sexual preferences versus, as Charles
Like,
points
dive
out,
into one. Dive into one and illuminate us.
Charles has a really interesting novel kind of perspective on how it could relate to COVID susceptibility, for example.
Yeah.
There. I mean, and aging, and it depends. Are we talking about longevity? Or are we talking about?
I want you to pick one.
Yeah.
And go.
They're all
I
different.
want you to pick one and go.
Some
I
of
know,
them.
but just pick. But I'm not looking for you to be comprehensive. This is
Hey,
genuine
Greg,
interest
don't
here. No,
interrupt.
no, no,
Just
wait.
let him
No,
talk.
no. Yeah, no,
Greg,
I'm trying to guide him.
just, yeah, no,
I'm
but
trying to guide him.
let him
No,
say
you
it. He
don't have to
thinks is
guide
that,
Okay.
him.
let him say it in
No,
a
I do.
complicated way.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Relax, Greg.
this deserves a whole other room title at the moment.
Yeah, give him the time.
Yeah,
You
True.
yeah.
asked him the question, give him the time.
I'm
Okay,
happy to
take the
do
time.
that. Let's do it as a full on room because we could
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do the go into a room thing. You
No,
motherfucker.
Greg,
You
let the
legitimately.
motherfucker.
moderator
This is
let
not a
the
cop
moderator
No.
out.
keep his ambiguity.
This
Let the
No.
is not
moderator
a
keep his
cop out.
ambiguity.
I'm committing.
No.
I'm
No, I
committing to
think
doing a
Do it.
room on it with you.
he needs
Do
to
it
be neutral
now.
too, somewhat.
Yeah,
Do it
Greg, he
now.
doesn't tweet his answers out. Okay,
Yeah.
Do
yeah.
it
He,
now.
Yeah.
he needs to,
I don't.
right?
There's
So
a long-standing scientific model called looking
Uh,
at monozygotic twins raised separately. So they have
Yep.
the same
yeah,
exact
yeah,
genome,
yeah. I
and
want to
they're
know what
raised in
Tyler
different
thinks.
environments.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
But well,
You
actually, John, I do want to know what you think too. But I want to know what Tyler
well, we
thinks.
need a room
I
for that.
know, Greg. You have to let Tyler talk if you want to know what he
Okay,
thinks,
here's
right?
what I'm
So just
committing
let
to.
him
No, I
And
talk.
don't. I don't have to do anything. I can do anything I want.
yes,
Cheryl, shut up and let Tyler talk.
so I'm
I love you,
committing
but
to
shut up.
doing the room after as soon as this one closes. I'm committing to doing a room to answer precisely all of
Okay,
those. Yes.
I am now happy. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So
I
because
would
yeah.
just say, right, that I started out very much, nurture, nurture, nurture. I've now gone way more towards nature, and I think the preponderance of the evidence is stacking up over and over on the nature side of things. And I think people are scared of this, much in the same way they're scared of facial recognition or, all kinds of technologies. But if we are honest about the last, 18 months, and we really just had a giant experiment that took place with COVID, and we need to be honest about the role of genetics in these kind of matters, because this one size fits all of everybody has to wear a face mask or everybody has to get a vaccine, it's just not going to work in a biodiverse planet, a human
Yeah,
biodiverse planet. It
I
just
hear
isn't.
where you're coming from, and Charles, just so that everybody knows, and just so I put a little bit of myself on the line, Charles Johnson is one of my favorite people here on Clubhouse and generally, and everything that I think, I want to know what he thinks about it, and I don't care what anybody thinks about him and how scary or whatever this shit is. Personally, I think he's one of the most genuine people on here, as is Tyler, and the only reason I'm being hard on Tyler is because I think that oftentimes he uses this as a sounding board, and I'm super interested in what goes on in his head. And one of his, he has a lot of techniques that he uses to reroute conversations. They're really good, and one of them is the separate room thing. But if he really does hold to it and does a separate room where he talks about it, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And so that sounds like what he's committing
Come,
to do
come
right
on,
now,
Greg.
and
Don't
Good
therefore I'm happy.
morning.
don't
Good
reveal the
morning.
Jedi mind tricks too much.
Tyler,
Go ahead, Heidi.
as the mother of
Yeah.
as the mother of this room, can we acknowledge that someone told Cheryl to shut up?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Cheryl and I are
and that's
friends,
not okay.
Dr.
Yeah.
No, Cheryl and I are friends,
I
Dr. Heidi. So
understand,
step
but
off,
I
step off,
know, but I
step off.
no, I'm not going to
Yeah,
because I
you
invited.
can argue
I
with me
think
if you
it's
want to,
very rude.
but we welcome you in this room as Dr. Heidi, who hasn't been here before. But Cheryl and I are friends, and we'll be okay. So you know, if Cheryl wants to tell me to shut up as well, she can do
Dr.
it.
Heidi has
We're
been here
friends.
a few times.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Can we
just
can we all
factually.
Well,
So
look, if
just
you
I
want to
hold
box
on?
invited
me,
Dr.
if you want to
Ross.
box me, you can
Okay.
box me. But no, you will not scold me
No,
for
I
saying shut
just
up.
think it's
Move on
inappropriate
or
on a
box me.
public forum.
You're inappropriate for saying that here. You're inappropriate
I
for
think
calling
it's
me inappropriate.
inappropriate in a public
Yeah. Well,
forum
you're so
because
Greg,
people
tolerant that your
whatever,
to
brain is
Greg,
falling out of your
whatever
regardless
head.
of your
relationship,
religion.
Greg,
No, your
whatever
brain is falling
relationship
out of
you
your
Hold
head.
have.
on. Ding,
Your
ding,
brain
ding.
is falling out of your head.
I
Your brain.
Oh,
Stop using your brain.
I
Stop using your
invited
heart and use your
Dr.
brain.
Ross.
okay.
I invited Dr.
Who's telling me to
Ross
stop?
to the
Okay.
Is it one of the
I
moderators?
invited Dr. Ross to
Yes.
because we were talking about recording surgeries, and I think as a surgeon, I really respect his opinions, and I think that would be a good person to add to the conversation from a seasoned surgeon. What does he think about recording surgeries? Because I remember we were in another room and we talked about recording surgeries, and I don't know if it was this room or it was MedTech room. And there were very interesting opposing ideas about whether that would help or not. So he's in the audience. I don't know if he has time to come up,
Okay.
but Taylor or
Yeah.
Cal, if you want to invite him up, and you want to, I know Florina talks about this, so I thought it would be an interesting discussion. But thanks
That
for
would be
having me.
What's
interesting.
his name again?
Yeah,
Heidi.
thank you.
What's his name again?
Dr. Ross.
Okay, I'll look for him.
Go ahead. Thank you, Tyler, Cal. Yes, go ahead. Tyler, Yep. could I ask a random question, Yep. but that's connected to something that you were
The nature versus nurture versus nature. I have a real fascination with this, and
That we're going to do a whole room on that.
That's actually what I was going to ask. I was
Okay.
actually going to ask because I'm literally listening to what Charles has spoken in several rooms
Yep.
very eloquently because
Yeah.
I have someone in my life that studied similar background of him at Kent State. So I'm very curious about it because I have a fascination with epigenetics.
Yep. Me too.
And this, yeah, so I'm very curious and I would love, please invite me to that breakout
Yep.
room when you do it.
It's
And
going.
Greg
Well,
and Charles, thank you for.
it's happening immediately at the close of this room. Whenever that
Perfect.
happens.
Well,
Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge, basically Charles, Greg, Tyler, and you guys are doing a fantastic job despite sometimes it could get a little bit tricky. And that's
Thank
something
you.
beautiful about the way you navigate the room.
Yep.
Because there is the platform to hold space
Yep.
for the different personalities
Yep.
engaging in conversation
Yep.
without making anyone feel shamed or blamed. And I think that's a really positive thing here. And
Thanks.
I really appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah. It's
Can
going
we
to be.
talk about Amazon and genetics?
Hey, when let me know when I could ask a question or Go two. for it. Thank you. Go ahead. Okay, it's going to be off this topic, but Greg, Tyler, Charles, Michael, the rest of you really enjoy following and listening to you all. Um, but real quick, one thing I was thinking about is as I listened to Alonzo and some of you guys talk about Amazon and Apple and these companies, even though we think that they're companies of the future, a lot of things that you're talking about are old blocking and tackling things that they have not mastered, and I feel like they're falling on their face. When you're ranging from OSHA, ranging from how they're pricing things, I feel like the biggest problem I have with tech isn't what they're doing. It is that I think they're losing a huge opportunity where they could have their users, their public, actually do more of the speaking for them when it comes to dealing with the government than they are doing for themselves, because every now and then they nip and tuck and take certain things away when they could be sharing it. And if they did that, they actually would have a huge lobbying group with the public that they have. As for the Amazon question and the warehouse and everything like that, or the comments, um, I take some of those things as anecdotal. But if they really have that big of a problem, eventually they'll have a union. And what's going to be interesting is when these tech companies start dealing with what companies like I worked with had to deal with, and then their margin pressures in everyday life will come to roost. But lastly, I think one of the things that I'd love to hear is how do we help government reinvent the regulatory systems and their commissions? Because if I look at the U.S. in particular, the Federal Trade Commission Act actually was launched around 1914 relating to competition. And, how do we go back and reinvent that with everything that has gone on since then in the world that we're in so that they manage it correctly? Because I don't think they know what they're doing. They're allowing companies to acquire things and then they complain about wanting to bust them up. Amen.
Hi, this is Heyman. I just want to add to Dr. Rob Johnson there. The one thing that we are not talking about is robotics, because Amazon does not really care about the employee health at this point because they're just trying to manage it. It's just a stopgap, it seems. Because I've watched workers at the Detroit facility, and as Alonzo said, it's bad. And as a physical medicine and rehab doc, I saw them bending down, up, and I was like, why are you doing this up and down when you could have just easily given it to me? She said, no, you need to scan it at each level. I'm like, okay. But the thing is, robots, the only reason they haven't able to do full robotics is because of the pincer grip that they have difficulty with, like grabbing small little packages. But that's coming soon. So I think that's, and also a Canadian company is actually working on a big robotic thing for vertical warehousing. And also, I believe in China, they're actually leading in terms of the smaller package grabs. So I think that's the reason why they're actually trying to avoid as much as they can in creating a union, because then they can lay off these people. That's what
So,
my theory is.
so I've spent a lot of time obsessing over Jeff Bezos, and we were we were both part of the same like child prodigy program. We knew like we know a lot of people in common. I've met him on like 2 different occasions. He's a big fan of Clearview, the facial recognition company I started, and he has for years been talking about basically using Amazon to get into the governments and into healthcare in particular. And if you just kind of study his moves, um, it's kind of very clear that he's into the genetics stuff as well. And so I think what we'll see probably in the next few years is the reason they're choosing their own employees to do the experiment on is because they want to basically like ease the public into this. But if you look at like PillPack, for instance, I mean, PillPack has totally transformed the pharmacy industry in the United States. And I think we're probably going to end up getting something like a single payer system in the United States,
Hey,
and it's
Charles.
going to be Amazon that covers it.
Charles, can I ask you a question? So, when it comes to Bezos, who I've also spent one-on-one time with him about an hour before we both kind of probably ran in opposite directions, and I joined Apple shortly thereafter. And I guess my question to you is he truly an ally against the forces of communism and socialism and all of that? Or does he just want to be the despot? Which one do you think?
That is a great question. So the way I look at it is, so Lawrence Gies, his grandfather, was actually, and actually I wrote about this on my Substack recently. It's, Charles Johnson Thoughts and Adventures, whatever. Talking about Lawrence Gies, his grandfather. I mean, he was the number 4 employee at DARPA, right? So he's like a
Yeah,
very brilliant man. He worked on atomic energy questions. DARPA, of course, gave us the internet, and of course, Bezos is now, the world's richest man in large measure because of the internet. So, and he went to D.E. Shaw, which is a CIA front. He went to Princeton, which is a CIA front. It's no secret that I have, family members that are CIA. So obviously, like we're in the same sort of family, as it were, is the way I would think about it. But and he's been a target of foreign espionage and all these other things, as I have been. So I really admire him, but I don't. I mean, he is. I don't think
it's
he
the
has
whole die a
politics. I
hero
think
or
he's the
live
king
long
of
enough to become a
Amazon.
villain thing, right?
Yeah, he's the king of. Look, so he could be Lex Luthor, right? Like there is a
Yeah,
strong case to be made for that. But maybe you don't want a Superman, running around,
correct.
So like
No, correct.
there are moments in which, like let me put it this way, the he has personally out of his own money, he's done a number of things for the US government, some of which I know about, all of which I won't talk about, that strongly put him in the category of superhero when it comes to national security questions.
Let me be
and
a
and I
Anyways,
think that that's something
well.
that's
Let me
like,
put a fine
yeah.
point on the question. You know me fairly well, better than the average person here on Clubhouse, I would say. Should I continue working against him, or should I try to help the guy out? Not that he needs it.
Depends on the project, I would say. It depends on the
Okay, so
project.
it's
I
a
mean,
case by case
yeah,
basis.
I would say that you
Do you
can
think
always
that
trust him
he
to act in his own
appreciates
self-interest, right?
do you think that he appreciates the nuance of that, or do you think that he is because the other thing that we're dealing with here is the fact that when he gets pissed off, and I'm not afraid of him, I actually am not, although that may be stupid.
I
Um,
I am.
but yeah, like I'm afraid of what would happen if I got the full power of his laser beam at this moment. But I guess that's what I'm saying is,
Well,
do you
the
that
very
that's a variable in whether you decide to support him or make it more difficult for him, isn't it?
the very
How mercurial is he?
the most powerful billionaires in the US who interface and sell to the government are basically a function of the state. So Elon Musk is deep state, Peter Thiel is deep state, Palmer Luckey is deep state, and so is Jeff Bezos. Now the question becomes, for those of us who have more libertarian inclinations, and I confess to having had some of those when I was younger,
Yeah,
um, what ends up happening is that as you reach the pinnacle of success, which Bezos unquestionably has, you become basically by nature a small c conservative establishment figure.
yeah,
And I think that, I mean, he commands the resources of like a major country,
correct.
like if we're honest about it. And that's not even, he's not even
Well,
like,
that's why it would be foolish to say that you're not like I say this. I am afraid of him if he were to put his full laser beam on me. I think I can weather it if I'm just like a femtosecond here and there.
Well, let me put it this way. I will say that like there are a few days that are happiest of my life. You know, birth of my daughter. You know, whatever. You know, election of Donald Trump when I was there and no one thought he could win. You know, various other things of this magnitude. Gawker filing for bankruptcy. These are happy days in my life. But when Jeff Bezos said that Clearview was fucking amazing, that was like I was
I get
through
that.
the roof with that.
We get that.
So like, you know, if I have a son, you know, I don't know if it'll be like Peter Thiel Johnson or Palmer Luckey Johnson or Jeff Bezos Johnson, but I do think that he is aware of a lot of communist problems in this country. You know, his adoptive father, the one whose surname he's taken because he wasn't born a Bezos, right?
Yep.
His adoptive father, you know, was involved in a lot of CIA projects in Cuba, trying to bring freedom to Cuba. And, you know, I know the CIA has criticisms, and I'm not necessarily here to discount people, you know, from those criticisms or to dissuade
Of
them from.
course.
But it's very obvious when you spend time around Bezos, when you see him operate, that he very much is a CIA man.
Do you know how
And
many people are leering or behind their microphones right now wanting to unmute and say that you're a terrible person for saying you were happy that Donald Trump was elected? They're just like, ugh, they want to do it. They want to
well,
kill you.
I don't necessarily disagree with them either. I mean, I wrote something the other day praising Joe Biden after
I
he
know.
came up with the DARPA for Health. So
Well, but people hate nuance, Charles.
I know
That's the thing that they hate the most. They hate nuance. They want you to
just
fit
as
into a
long as they're
bucket so
not
that they
just
can
as long as they're
control
not
you.
putting redheads to death anymore by burning them alive at the stake, I'm cool with it.
And now we
What did you
know.
think
Whatever
about
you
it
want to
Yes.
when the
say is
I
South
fine
Park
with me.
episode came out?
Okay. Okay.
When
Okay.
the South Park episode came
I
out
don't
where they
think
killed
people
all
hate
of the gingers, what
nuance.
did you think?
Hang on. I don't think that's a fair statement, Greg. I don't think people hate nuance. What is?
Okay, well, defend yourself because you can't just say that. And apparently you think my position isn't nuanced.
I would just say, let me put it this way,
Well, I
okay?
will defend myself, and I will
Well,
defend also.
do you think my
I will
position is
defend Dr.
nuanced,
Heidi.
Cammy? Do you think my
I will
position
also
is new?
defend Dr. Heidi Godarzi for standing up for what she thought was
Yeah,
ethical.
you could gang up on me all you want to. It's okay. I'll be fine. This is
How
just
am
a
I
clubhouse
ganging
Greg
app.
up?
is not
You're
ganging up.
interrupting me.
Greg is
Yeah, of
not
course.
ganging up. You
Wait,
need
who's
to,
talking now?
Hang
nobody.
on.
Who's
It's
talking
To
now?
say you're
Cam.
being,
Cam
Who's
is
to say
talking
you're,
talking. No,
now?
no,
I
just
Oh,
Cammy.
apologize.
Cam.
Hold on a second.
Cam.
Let
Hey,
me
Cam, how
talk
you
to
doing?
Greg for a sec. Doing good. I mean, I
Well,
really like you as a person, but
Yeah,
sometimes if you make a mistake, if you're
I didn't
walking
make a
the,
single mistake
if
today.
you just listen, if you
well,
can,
hang on,
because
Yep.
Cam, do you mind if I say my piece? Because
okay,
Greg
sorry.
Oh, we got
asked
Cam
me a
and
direct
Cammy.
question.
The universe is the simulation is at work here. Cam and Cammy. Yep, go ahead,
Okay,
Cammy.
that's really funny. Um, I just want to say that I really enjoyed listening to your conversation, and I really enjoyed this room.
Yep,
And
I'm following you now.
I don't believe that you're being ganged up upon because I don't think that, frankly, I don't think that's a nuanced statement.
Oh,
And
it is.
maybe, maybe not. But what I will say is
Well,
that
there's nuance.
I respect people who stand up for their values and stand up for those who they think may have been in a situation that they themselves would not appreciate. And I also am nuanced enough to understand when you say, hey, I'm friends with so and so, and you know, I can speak to her like that. So
Uh-huh.
so I just want to let you know that there are people in this world who appreciate and value nuance.
Yes, well, I'll tell you this. It is a fundamental goal of mine. Thank you for the comment, first of all. But it is a fundamental goal of mine to neither be universally liked nor universally disliked. I want to be liked and also not liked. And that's perfectly fine with me, and I think that everybody else is
So Greg,
free to take the same thing.
since you asked for people to defend themselves, like kind of bring evidence or what you called it. So by definition, a hostile environment is created when you do something that makes other people in your company uncomfortable. That's like a legal definition of a hostile environment. So you can be
Well, you're
friends
making
with
me
whoever
uncomfortable
you
right
want.
now.
I
Could you
understand
please
that,
let
but
her
I'm saying that
finish?
when you call
You're making me very, very uncomfortable. It
Could you
sounds like
please
you're
let her
trying to tell me
finish?
that I'm creating a hostile environment,
No,
but
I'm
I'm
just
not.
saying when you told me that I didn't want to drag this on, but since someone else brought it up, when you tell me that you're friends with her and you can call her that, if you're making others in
What,
this
call her
company
what?
uncomfortable, you
What
can't
did
do
I
that.
call her? What did I
Can
call
Can
her?
I
we
can I
let
ask a
No, no,
person
no.
favor?
Wait, wait,
finish
wait,
her
wait, wait,
thought
wait,
and
wait,
then chime
wait,
in, Greg? You cannot
You
just
wait,
cut
You
off
yelled
after
at
wait,
someone.
another
Okay.
woman to
wait,
shut up.
Oh,
wait.
Ahmed.
Dr. Heidi, you
sir,
just
this is
made
a
a pretty
Wendy's.
big,
Yeah.
nope. You just made a pretty big misstep. You said that I called her something, but I didn't.
Right.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
you're right.
You're
You
right,
yelled
Greg.
at
Hold
her
on.
to
Let,
shut up.
let
Ahmed.
this be tech news around the world. If you guys have a private fight, some of us might join it elsewhere.
Yeah.
But like, let's talk about the tech.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ahmed.
You know,
I just invited up there because of your medical background, glad to see you hanging out there in the audience. I wanted to get your take because you have years of DNA testing background, vaccine background, partnerships,
Yeah, I know. No,
etc.
I pinged Amit in. Let's just
Yeah.
get this just a little bit. Yeah, I pinged Amit in. I picked Dr. Heidi in, and a whole bunch of medical because we were getting into a very
Con.
interesting
Yeah.
discussion. Uh,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Ahmed.
Yeah. Let's go
very
back to
sorry.
what Cal is talking about. Yeah.
Can I can I just can I just say something? Sorry. Yeah. So yeah. So we were in a discussion about Amazon, and very good. And I think Greg, you came in and you actually catalyzed some of that with Alonso as well, and it was a great discussion. And I think that's what people want to unmic for at the moment because I think they're experts
yeah.
and
Let's
if
talk a little bit
and I
more about Amazon
yeah.
because I want
Well,
to just say,
hang on one
yeah,
second,
sorry,
Charles.
good. Yeah, sorry,
Charles, man, I'm talking. Like,
sorry.
just come on. I know we do this. Okay, I spend a lot of time doing this, but please, at least, like, you guys like the audience, right? So the audience comes. Let's help the audience just get to the discussion they've all come here for, right? And I know it's frustrating for a lot of people when when I ping Greg in sometimes I give him the space because we ping him on Apple, right? These people are smart people, they're medics, they're treating patients, they're doing whatever, right? They've jumped into this conversation, right? So can we just like, and that was the conversation, right? And I think they want to have that conversation. If they don't, we can move on to this other discussion that we want to have, that some people want to have. That's okay. I'm here to create this space. I love this app, and I love doing that, right? So
Cal.
that's all. Hang on, I don't want to have a discussion about me right now. I want to just get back to this discussion, right? So, Emmett, and I know when I was in the medtech rooms, this is why I know this community. We've discussed this topic so much, and it's so passionate topic that they passionately discuss it. So they're all on board, and if we want to get into those topics, they're here. So thank you very much.
Hey,
That was his way of saying if you have a medical background, he'd like to hear your take on this.
yeah, Ahmed, welcome. Yeah, the question I have for the medical folks on here, Heyman, for example, Dr. Heidi, etc., Ahmed, certainly, is how do you perceive, the world 10 years from now with regard to Amazon's ambitions in the medical space? Do you welcome that? Do you think it's something we should resist in the same way that we're now very careful about the other big tech companies and the power that they are accumulating? Should we be very concerned about Amazon's ambitions within healthcare, or is this something we should be applauding because they could potentially do it much better than the current systems, for example? Or what kind of thoughts do you have when you think about Amazon's ambitions here in the medical space?
Well,
Go ahead.
Yes, Ahmet?
I saw that Dr. Heidi opened up her mic. I joined the conversation literally a few minutes ago. I DM'd quite a few people here on the stage to just brief. I would like to first of all listen to what has been discussed here. That I really would like to vocalize because I didn't hear too much what has been discussed previously.
I think your mic is breaking up.
Can you hear me? I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Okay, yeah,
Try
now we
again,
can hear
please.
you.
So sorry, my apologies. So what I wanted to say is that I joined the conversation a few minutes ago, and all what I've heard was a bit of a hard discussion with a bit of disrespect towards each other. So I would like to maybe first get the information and maybe listen for
Sure.
a few minutes
Sure.
and then chime in.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
the only thing that I like and what I really as a person I prefer and how I run my rooms is I like when people respect each other and do not cut each other off. So just wanted to put that there.
Thank you for
That's
defending
it.
me, Amit. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
Dr. Heidi and Heyman and the others with specifically with medical backgrounds, how do you feel about Amazon's ambitions in the med space? Are you apprehensive or concerned or excited, or how would you express your thoughts on that?
So I think the general view, we've talked about a lot of things in technology, and I come across as a pessimist about technology, but I think I'm actually a big fan of kind of how the world is moving. I am not, I wouldn't want to resist them, but I think like anything else, the tech people get, sorry for generalizing it, but the tech people get a little bit overexcited about entering the medical space. And I think Cal and I have talked about this before, and in this room too, there needs to be a lot more medical expertise into this and practical medical expertise. So I think it's a little bit overambitious and it's nowhere near practical. And I think if we watch these smaller companies that came around and did Forward succeed? No. Did these like I'm not saying it's the same thing, but they thought that they're disrupting the healthcare and they're going to do something better. There's just some fundamentals in medicine that can't be replaced or changed that fast. So as long as we respect that and move slow, any new idea, any innovative idea from from the tech side, from the big businesses, just it could help. But as long as we just don't get ahead of ourselves, I think that's why they don't succeed, because they get over excited about taking over medicine. Medicine is a very special field. I would argue that it's very different than any other field because it encompasses so many different aspects. You're dealing with human beings and their health, and it's really difficult to enter that world unless you're in that world. And that's why, electronic medical records after how many years, 20 years, is the biggest failure of like our practice, our daily practices.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hey, very, very good to hear that. Heyman, what are your thoughts?
So I actually believe that there's a beneficiary and there's going to be losers, right? And healthcare definitely needs to be disrupted. Um, as a physician too, I'm just saying this as a physician because I think everything's focused on the tertiary care. And what Amazon, if you think about it, has a grasp on is the consumer end. So Amazon, if it like Amazon has been planning this for a while.
Right.
I know that in 2014, Amazon went because as a geriatric focused person too, I was keeping an eye on all this, and I also kept so many of my ideas quiet because I know Amazon likes to feel things out, right?
Right.
So in spring, I think in 2014, they actually had a bus tour of geriatric centers. They actually took a bunch of their employees and went around, like I think I'm not sure where exactly, but across the U.S. somewhere, and they actually explored and investigated all these facilities that were there. So they have been doing this for like 7 years now. And if, as I said before, in clinics and stuff, where is the first place we look for products? We go on Amazon, and Amazon has all this data there. They know which crutches people buy, which orthotics, which canes, which medications, which supplements. Like, think about it. Even the supplement industry is huge. They easily, I mean, easily Amazon tries to beat everyone's price. If you try to price match, Amazon always goes a little bit higher, a bit lower.
Right.
Also, in terms of the data, they're not going to be able to crack into the data that's on the electronic health records, even though they are stored on AWS, right? Epic stores most of the data on AWS. And Epic was recently, because of the whole COVID, they were resistant to telehealth, I mean, to other parties getting API to their EHR, right? But because of COVID, they were forced to do it because they had to, right? They had to release the data so that all these companies that were already ahead of them in terms of telehealth and everything else can actually access some of the data. Now, of course, Epic will pivot a bit and they'll bring out a product like for more telehealth and community level. That's what she said, they're going to now focus more on the community side. And again, if you think about it, there are already people ahead of her in doing this. And Amazon, all it has to do is just buy up a couple of companies. They've got enough of a money trove to just get the right people. They buy up the people, put it together. They've got the basically the vehicle. They have the vehicle for delivery. They just need the face. And right now, the face is they're working on it. And as I was saying, the conspiracy theory is, if you think about it, you remember how Amazon did the women's haircut salon?
Yes, in London.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah, in London.
right,
Yeah.
right. So if you think about it, there's been a lot of research that went into African American barbershops, right? And they were like community hubs where people felt that they could actually talk about their health issues. And they found that even hypertension studies, that hypertension, when assessed in a barbershop, was more accurate than if a patient went into a hospital. And also, you could do preventative health in barbershops. So these are community hubs. So if you think about it, like all these technology, if you put it all together, like they're getting a mirror that actually watches you. There are Philips, or I don't know which company, by the way. I think Philips was the one that actually did the recording of blood pressure and O2 sats, I think, by video. I mean, by visual cues. So I'm thinking like all these products are going to come together, like voice assistant, right, for seniors, Echo for telehealth, delivery, immediate delivery, right? So if telehealth,
Scribing.
sorry, subscribing, yes. So and their technology, their voice dictation technology is amazing. And they have been listening in to a lot of information. If you looked at all the hackathons that happen in the healthcare, they would give out a free AWS account and they'll give you the voice assistant account, right? So now they're already collecting data from all these people thinking of different ideas. I remember when I was helping with a nurse hackathon, they were there, right? Microsoft was there too, but it was Microsoft's thing, but they were there, right? So they were actually there as a team and they were just listening in and everything. So I wouldn't bet against Amazon here, especially in the
This,
consumer end.
yeah, this point, even on the whole voice bit, I think like if we be precise about the part of medicine, like I'm going to take a frame called GP, the general practitioner. So you make a phone call and you look at the call volumes that go into GP surgeries in winter, and then you look at the slice of those calls that are to do with either flu or, in the most severe cases, would be chest infections, pneumonia. Then you look at the frame of people who consistently get antibiotics every winter. That's a massive cohort where you could just have a bot with Connect plugged in that says, this 72-year-old man has got underlying asthma, has a high propensity to get antibiotics, and it's the GP just is he's just an order taker, and also the pharmacy then becomes an order fulfiller. So like in those, the GPs, by the way, don't want to do this type of work.
Right.
It's the boring stuff. So I think there's a precise frame where it's better to talk in the precise than in the high level of abstraction. Is my point.
No, I get it. And also one thing, the losers, right? Because I think we need strong companies. I hate to say it, but for the consumer part, right? For the consumer has been unable to fight against these monopolies like the EHRs. So we need big voices like Bezos and even, I mean, Greg Duffy, right? I mean, these are the people who will actually go and fight for you because they want to make money, of course, right? But technically them going and putting the fight are the only way that even consumers can even get their step in to get the best deal, right? Consumers will win at the end. Healthcare will lose some specialties, especially the specialties that could be easily like migrated out, right? Because everything from anything requiring visual, radiology, dermatology, anything that also psychiatry can actually be transferred to community. I remember early on, a lot of patients were resistant to doing psychology by telehealth. But as the pandemic went on, a lot of the my colleagues started seeing the patients willing to do online, right? So now we're already like did this massive, experiment, and now people love it because they don't have to leave the house, and sometimes they don't want to be seen going to one of these facilities. So a lot more people will go into mental health training centers. But again, this is all data that's being collected too, right?
Yeah.
So
So, hey, man, I'm going to challenge
Tyler,
you
I would
on.
like to add something when you give me a chance.
Yeah,
Tyler, this
yeah,
is Manal.
yeah. I wanted to. We have Manaz and Amit and Hala, who had specifically. I'd love
And
to hear from.
Dave.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. I mean, Hyman explained it eloquently, beautifully. What we have seen in the past, it's been over a year with COVID. I work in a post-acute care setting, EHR, and what we have seen, most of the family or even the patient, they decided instead of, bringing their patient, their loved one to the post-acute care setting, they're taking them to home and taking care of them in a community. And regarding the delivery of healthcare, we know that's a big element in the healthcare equality and having access to the healthcare. I saw a post on Instagram regarding the vaccination. If you give the COVID vaccine to the prime guide delivery, if they're not, if everyone is not vaccinated by Thursday, by Saturday, everyone is going to be vaccinated. When we're going to get to the herd immunity in less than probably a week or 2 weeks at most. So I mean, but if you're looking at the way they are accessing their consumer, as someone who works in a tech and a healthcare, I don't think we should be resistant in what Amazon is doing, because if we are resistant, then we might have a system that's coming and pushing out the healthcare, and getting a big portion of the healthcare under their wing. But if we, as a stakeholder, we don't have participation, we may have some big holes that is just gonna hurt our patient, our community. I believe if we want to have a better society, this is a good change. And with the COVID and telehealth, we saw expedite change from the traditional care to more technology approach in a healthcare. And we cannot deny that. That is there. And we need to support that. But the way we support it and we're looking at it, if we are resistant, I don't think we're going to go to the right direction. We're going to be excluded in this a great opportunity to move forward and get to the next step in our healthcare delivery and our healthcare system, to provide a better health, better care to our community, and much, much, much cheaper. That doesn't mean the hospital is going to go out of the business. The post-acute care is going out of the business. In any level of healthcare that if you look at the reimbursement and their expense, we have a lot of waste. We have a lot of unnecessary stuff that we can eliminate. And I think we need to look at this process more closely, whatever, if it's Amazon or any other tech company. Thank you. This is
No,
Manaz, and I'm
Thanks,
done
Manaz.
talking.
thank you, Manas.
Taylor, can
That's a
I
very
add
good point.
something
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi,
to
and then
what
let's
Raymond
go.
said? Doctor,
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi, and
yeah, I
then
just want to
Ahmed, and
demonstrate.
then Hala. Yeah.
Yes, yes, sorry, because I have to leave, but I just wanted to just make a global point and then bring it down to what Dr. Heyman said. So the reason I said that there's not enough medical expertise was just demonstrated very eloquently in this room. So even within medicine, we don't know much about the other field, right? As a physician, as a trained physician, board certified dermatologist, I've never done neurosurgery. I don't know anything about that field. So there's a lot of, for example, and I'm bringing it down to example, like that's why I say we need a lot more medical expertise in these technologies. Dr. Heyman says radiology and dermatology would be eliminated, and everyone thinks my job is threatened. That's why I'm against it. As a matter of fact, I remove birthmarks in the OR from kids, so my job would never be eliminated, no matter what technology comes for the next, as long as I'm practicing. But Dr. Heyman, radiology is a two-dimensional field for mostly diagnostic radiology. It's on a screen. It's very transferable. Dermatology has 3,000 diseases, and only about one-third of them could be diagnosed without touch, feel, dermoscopy, texture, biopsy, scraping. So dermatology is actually not one of the ones that are going to be good. But this comment, and I've nothing like this comment I've heard so many times, that just demonstrates to me how much lack of knowledge we have when we make these technologies.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even among ourselves as physicians. So someone who was taking a big Medicare position in government and moved from Newport Beach, where I am, to take on a role at Medicare, told me, I'm going to make it very easy. I'm going to, like, all the conversations disrupt. And one of the things he said is that if I can give you pictures, instead of seeing 30 patients in your office, you can now see 500 pictures in the office. And it was like, you know nothing about my field, and no matter how easy you make it, I can never see 500. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about different parts of medicine, and every little field of medicine has its own nuances and its own ways of doing. So we need a lot more medical expertise. And the second thing that I want the room to talk about is that how is the quality of this care? Look at Amazon Care. It's all about clinicians. Who are these clinicians and what level of care you're getting? That's a huge part of this that with Play Award can get lost.
It seemed like your mic ended
Sorry,
quickly there.
Did we lose her?
can I just make a comment on one of the things that she said about the pictures? You're
Hold,
you're expecting.
hold that
Sorry, go
thought,
ahead.
Amanda. Hold that.
Hmm.
Thank you for. I'm. There's a bunch of people with questions. Charles has a question as well. Hold those.
I just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hold the
I just wonder.
question. What's the
Go
question,
ahead.
Charles?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would just say, I think it's kind of maybe perhaps a little silly to even ask doctors their opinion on their field as technology attacks it.
I agree.
With respect to the to the medical professionals here, I mean,
No, I
you've
agree
got,
with you, Charles.
yeah. So I think there are a lot of doctors who agree, but I would just say, I've had I had my daughter sequenced in the room, or in the womb rather. Um, and I think increasingly you're going to see a lot more people take personal ownership of their health considerations. And to the extent that Amazon does that, I'd be curious, what do you think of a world in which doctors are paid a lot less, in which they become a kind of working class profession, even maybe on par with, say, like a plumber or a mechanic of something of that sort? Do you think that that's a possible?
Hmm.
I would never want that. You need to know every fucking thing you need to know before opening up my anything. Like, if you're gonna
Yep.
be digging around in my brain, my heart, my anything, your
I
ass needs
agree.
to be in school for a
I've been
good
digging around in your
10 years
brain since
minimum.
I
Charles,
joined
Okay.
Clubhouse.
I challenge
Heidi's
you
back.
if your daughter had a gigantic birthmark on the forehead when she was born, that you would be coming to Stanford, but you would say, push Dr. Heidi away. I need to see the chief of department because I know she has 20 years, 30 years on Heidi, and I want to see her and I want her to cut on my.
Exactly, not a damn plumber. That's for damn sure.
It
But
depends what
okay,
But you're
depends
also
what we're
talking
talking
about
about.
it in the actual
Depends what we're
hospital.
talking
You
about.
made the doctor made a comment before about seeing 500 pictures and being able to get through 500 pictures instead of
right,
patients.
right,
But if the technology continues the way it's going, then the AI would be able to review those
right.
500 pictures. You wouldn't need a
Okay.
person to do it.
So I want to ask.
I,
I want to make sure
one
that we.
quick thing on
Wait.
on
What?
facial recognition
How?
in
Charles.
medicine.
Charles.
Oh
One
yeah.
second, please.
Go ahead.
I've been waiting. I've been really interested to hear Amit and Hala, to give them an opportunity to chime in here, uninterrupted. So Amit, if you could please, or Hala, both.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Thank you very much. Honestly, what an interesting and fascinating discussion we're having here. And maybe I'll give a bit of a background about myself. I am myself from Europe, but I work with the American healthcare sector. And I had a great pleasure while I was still at uni, due to my wonderful mentor, who's one of the directors at AbbVie. Uh, she kind of recruited me to participate while I was still a student, and when Lithuania, where I'm from, we were working on implementing e-health, and I had a great pleasure being a simple student from the med school, participate in this e-health board meeting. And I'm sitting here and thinking, maybe everyone's so frustrated in the United States because the healthcare system is so different, right? So
I think the word you're
now
looking for is screwed up. Yeah.
well, as I said, I like to be polite and more public
Sure.
places. What I wanted to say is that, like my healthcare records, when I go to a doctor, they're all, because it's the healthcare system, let's say in Lithuania, it's it's a public healthcare system, right? So I pay taxes, blah blah blah. All of the records, they go to a unified place which is run by the government, right, by the government, and I can just go online and check, my all of the records. I can get, all the information, right? I can
Right.
get my e-prescriptions. Everything is run through, through a governmental system.
Yep.
Yet in the United States, because you have a completely different, system, everyone's so frustrated because no one wants to share healthcare records. That's why in every room that I host about EHRs, right, electronic healthcare records, and for those who don't know what that is, CRMs for doctors.
Right.
Um, nobody wants to share their patient records with other systems, and everybody builds their own systems. That's why they don't, they're not compatible, and they're all different. And so this was like one of the observations that I've kind of noticed, that that's maybe, and if Amazon will be the one that will unify it all, right? Because what
Right.
they're trying to do is like a from A to Z. Anyway, I'll wrap it up. I'll chime in later on. But they're trying to build, everything from A to Z, from the pill to prescription to seeing a doctor all under one roof. IBM tried to innovate in the sphere. Did they succeed? Mm, I don't know who's familiar with IBM Watson. I don't know. I don't know. You tell me. I don't think that
No,
they've
they
succeeded.
didn't succeed. I can
They
tell.
don't.
Yeah,
They don't. They won't.
no.
Exactly. So the question whether they'll succeed, if everyone will buy, I don't know, insurance plan that is issued by Amazon, and how they will build the entire model, that's a question. If the people will want to adapt it, but if they will be able to solve the major problems of the United States healthcare system, I mean, I support it, I guess, because at the end of the day, look, I was laughing when I found out that people are still using paper records and fax machines. Like, what the hell is a fax machine? Can someone explain to me? Like, I was born in the early 90s, but like, what is a fax machine? Like, doctors are still using it. Like, if you go on all these like tech companies and their websites that are building these EHRs and other systems, they're offering the fax integrations. Like, really, so I think if there's someone big who wants to push it further, to answer your previous question, would I support it? I see Chris, you will break your phone if you'll be clapping that hard. but but jokes aside, yeah, basically, I mean, I could talk and talk for hours about this because I'm really interested in this topic, but I'll stop myself here and I'll chime in later on because I know there are a lot of people on the stage.
I get the sense of your point though, and then I want to give Hala a chance if you want the mic, Hala.
Hi guys,
Hey,
hello. Just been sitting here listening intently,
yeah,
and I'm a pharmacist, so some of the conversation does not directly impact my daily practice, but I'm definitely an advocate for telepharmacy because this is the business that I'm in, and some of the, I guess, here in the UK, definitely some of the challenges that I'm coming up against is, being in community pharmacy. It will definitely have to be a system that's in the interoperability is one of the kind of barriers to entry here in the UK with the National Health Service. But we do have a new system that's coming in called DTAC. So Digital Technology Acceptability Criteria, which is a new set of criteria that the National Health is trying to make it easier, more seamless to integrate into their systems. But certainly there are lots of issues that are coming in. But the DTAC system is definitely going to be of some help to clinicians in the UK. And there is also a new medicine management platform. And hopefully, some of the designs in that are going to be around giving patients access to their data. And I think it's going to go as far as not just accessing to data to look at, but perhaps even ownership, because we have to. I'm sure most of you here know the difference, that we have to be very specific when we talk about data, whether it's patient owned or patient has
yeah,
access to it. So one of the things that we're really, I think the UK is really keen on is that patient gets some kind of engagement in tracking the process of all their care, but also their prescriptions, which is where I would come in. So from the minute the prescription is requested, and then each prescription may actually just be a message on its own. Each prescription item may be a message on its own rather than a token, which is the system that we're using now. So exciting things. And I think some of the uncertainty for patients when it comes to obtaining medication is just not knowing where the prescription or the medicines are in the system. So there's even talk about being able to track it.
yeah.
Uber style, so you know exactly where it is in the chain.
That's
So
exactly. We had a headline just a couple of days ago that there's a new startup that allows for precisely that, of all
yes,
e-commerce packages that will be tracked from the
yes,
factories
yes,
all the way to the door, which is one of the important missing links in this.
yes.
I just noticed that there's a Chinese doctor with their hand raised, Dr. Andy Chuang. If you could join us, I would love to hear the Chinese medical professional perspective on this, because we don't really have I would love to get a better understanding of how things are progressing in China on this front. If you could join us on stage, you raised your hand and I
Yeah,
tried
he's
to.
not pulling up. He's got an app issue there, maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
if you could restart your app, Dr. Andy, because I accepted
What?
your invitation to join on stage and it doesn't seem to be working.
You can
While
also leave the room and come back in, and that should reset it.
Yeah,
and
thanks for
could
that.
I add to the amazing message by Dr. Hala and and as well as Amit, Dr. Hala. The reason is that they both of them actually focused on the patient. That's the key, right? Going forward. And Hala, I mean, pharmacists are the unspoken heroes also in healthcare. If you think about it, all management, I mean, yes, physicians are there. Yes, nurse practitioners are there. Everyone's there. But unless the care, I mean, is properly elucidated to the patient, like informed, the patient's well informed, that that person may not follow through with that management, and oftentimes it falls to the pharmacist at the basically the last mile, if you think about it, right, to actually talk to the patient and tell them what the medication's for, because oftentimes physicians run through a clinic, right? Most physicians do, because it's a billing system, unfortunately. It's a system where they actually get more money if they see more patients in an hour. So I think like we have to put that focus now on the patient. And sorry, Dr. Heidi, I didn't mean to say that the field is going to be entirely gone. But what I'm saying is that we're getting too hyper specialized into silos in medicine. We're getting hyper specialized, and that's where the costs are going up. We need to focus more on the primary end now. I think that's where most of healthcare should occur, because that's preventative. Because once you come into the acute setting, the tertiary care centers, the big hospitals, that's when the money gets spent. And that's, of course, great for the hospitals. It's great for them, right? And great for the physicians who are there. But it does not help our overall healthcare system. And that's where I think we should pay attention. That's why I'm saying like things like Amazon and everything. I don't want Amazon to have the monopoly, but I want Amazon to disrupt it. I want Greg's to disrupt it. I can't do it as one person. I can't. Patients have been
Hey,
trying so
Heyman.
hard.
I didn't
Hey,
take
Heyman, I
any
have to
But
offense.
then
I'm
interject.
just
that's
saying it's
fragmentation
people
of
don't
service.
know enough about other fields. And I think Tyler and Cal, at all expense, you need to have more practicing physicians in this room, because this is the microcosm of the problem I brought up. About a big group of tech people are talking about healthcare, and the few doctors you had
Can I
left.
Just
Hey,
from
strongly,
wait,
So,
strongly,
and
can I
can
just
I
also
wait?
strongly
doctors,
Wait,
disagree?
can I
sorry,
Jan,
jump in
please
on that?
let her
doctors were not
finish.
Hold on,
They've
please,
had
doctors
the
who are
entire
not
floor for a while.
investing in
doctor.
doctors who are not investing in tech companies. So you need practicing physicians in this room at all.
Thank you, Dr.
and
Heidi.
just to
Can I
just
jump in?
point
I
out.
just,
Supposedly to
Hold on,
practice
hold on,
With all
please.
due
wait,
respect,
wait.
One
Dr.
second.
Heidi,
One second.
with due
Please,
respect,
yeah, please
Dr.
flash,
Heidi, you were here.
please
Dr.
flash your
Heidi,
mics if you have a
that's why
comment,
you're.
so we can just get a sense for who's itching to jump on the mic. So we got Chris, Greg.
Well, I'm just saying, Heidi, that's why you're here, right? So this is the discussion. So we're doing it now. Yeah.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
Charles, and Aslak. We have not heard from Jennifer and Aslak so far today. So let's go Jennifer and Aslak, and then I'll do another mic check, and we'll make sure everyone gets a moment. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer, and then Aslak.
So I just jumped out for the last hour, went over to the med tech room, and they're actually discussing this exact topic, and it's by policymakers. And so it's super interesting to hear their side of it and where things are and what they feel as pain coming from tech, because you've got product engineers over there trying to design tech products for the medical field when they don't understand the field or the patient process. But where could it be helpful, and where is the low hanging fruit, like medical records, so that you could free up doctor's time? They did comment on the whole fax thing. One of them said that in Toronto they're actually updating their fax systems, and the fact that they're even putting money into faxes is
Yeah,
hilarious. That
yeah,
they're
yeah.
all
Yes, exactly.
flying
I'm
over.
sorry, can I just make a
And
comment
again,
about the fax thing? I'm sorry.
and
It's
wait, and well, yeah, but it's, I would guess it's from entrenched systems, same as everywhere else in government. But
it's
it's
actually because of the HIPAA laws, but that's besides the point. It's yeah,
Thanks for
for
that.
encryption and all of
I
that.
don't.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say I'm being a privacy attorney. I'm not sure how HIPAA would preclude the use of something besides fax, but or require fax. But anyways, uh, that's it's just interesting to hear people here talking about it from their experiences and their fields over there. They're talking about it in the really big picture and getting into it, and the fact that you're going to have to get entrenched systems like big hospitals, and that's the least of it. They work with insurance. Where's the money? there's a lot of different interests, and in med tech, you're going to have tech people plus medical people
Yes.
plus financiers, plus you've just got this, and then you've got people that are fearful of losing jobs, then people that are fearful of having an AI work on them. Like, what is it accurate? What's it doing? And again, there's low hanging fruit areas, and then there's uh, as Heyman was saying, in home care, like following people, it's a huge issue that people don't follow through on their care. And so the pharmacist is it, but there's also companies coming up with like robots that are friendly robots at home that just remind you to take your pills, because it's really hard to get people to follow through. So it's just a fascinating field.
Yeah. Thank you for
And I'm all
the.
for the disruption. I'm
Yeah.
all for disruption. Yeah.
Aslak, go ahead. Thanks for that,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
I just wanted to say it's not surprising that I don't remember who was reading. Heyman, I think, was reading up like what Amazon is
Right.
hiring
The job
behavior
listings. Yeah.
design people. I mean, when you think about it, and even Heyman or some other doctors are talking about it's supposed to be primary care. I've been working with behavior change for the past 4 years at the research institutes. It's all about the behavior change. We just heard about taking medication. I mean, doctors know nothing about that area, like behavior change. It's about it's either
Agree.
go rest or take the pill, or I'm gonna cut you. So but when you want to start changing, I'm sorry, but
No, it is true. It's specialized, too specialized.
Is that the sign on
yeah,
the door of the doctor's office? Take the pill, or I
No,
cut you. Yeah.
they'll fire
yeah.
you. Basically,
Well,
they'll fire you.
I know I'm not. I don't want to be disrespectful but I heard this from doctors themselves because I work with them all the time.
Well, yeah, thank you for that's a great point. Dr. Andy, you were able to join us on stage, and I'm very glad to see that. And I assume you're working in China, looking at your bio here, and would love to hear. Hopefully, you've been listening for a while, but what are your thoughts about? We're talking about the future of the American medical system with regard to Amazon's very ambitious plans. What are your thoughts from a Chinese perspective? Dr. Andy?
Ground control
Are you there?
to Dr. Andy.
Dr. Andy.
We need you, Dr. Andy.
Ground control to
I think
Dr.
he's not a
Andy.
doctor, he's a PhD.
Doesn't matter.
He's not a doctor.
We can
He's
pretend.
a PhD.
That's
I'm a
what
I'm
happens
a
in many
doctor.
medical
Ground
rooms. Some
control
of
to
the
I'm a doctor.
Dr. Andy.
I'm a doctor. Can
It
I
shouldn't
speak?
matter. It shouldn't
Greg
matter. It's
Greg needs to
experiences
go,
that
man.
matter.
He's
It shouldn't matter
Greg.
what your
Well,
credentials are.
okay,
Yeah.
guys. If a PhD counts, why not
Did
a
you know
decent
that I am a
position
doctor,
working
but
for
I
a
don't put
Chinese
it in my
company?
freaking profile?
So, hold on one sec on this here. So we had. I'm looking. Go ahead, Carl. You've not.
I am a doctor.
We got you, Greg. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, feel free to shoot this down if it's not pertinent enough. But is there room in this conversation to consider Elon Musk? Because
Nope.
not only has
Nope.
obviously he's been very vocal
No.
on it. No, I know, but follow this through, and then tell me if it's stupid. All right. Not only is he being obviously very vocal on healthcare, you've got Neuralink, you've got the fact that Starlink provides access to telemedicine in rural areas and in sort of foreign countries. But also, if at some point, obviously talking about Luna and Mars colonies, at some point he has to address healthcare. So no, I know, but he has to address healthcare at some point. He has
Okay.
to introduce some sort of
I like your
infrastructure.
style,
So
Carl. I
maybe.
like your style.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
The question, of course, Carl, is which health provider will you use on Mars? Yeah, someday we will need to answer that, and it might be SpaceX Healthcare. I would argue Jeff
What if the
Bezos.
Chinese go up?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Can,
sorry.
can I also
Ahmed.
can I also add to this conversation after Ahmed?
Yeah, who said that? Chris?
This is Haitham.
Okay, sure. So Ahmed and then Haitham. Go ahead.
No, I just,
Ugh.
yeah. Number one, I just wanted to say that Dr. Andy, we should maybe push someone who's a doctor in business administration to speak about the healthcare if they don't want to. So I think that's one thing.
Okay.
And I think actually that's how telehealth started, from the space. If you'll check the history of telehealth, fun fact. Anyway, I'll have some things to add, but after Haitham, I know you wanted to speak.
Okay, Haitham, and before Haitham,
Thing, just as a factual point, the telehealth thing happened because of an executive order that the president wrote. I was a part of the team that actually worked on it, And a lot of what we got pushback from was a lot of medical doctors who claimed that they had a lot of expertise on the subject and that really there was no way that they could actually just treat a patient over the internet. And it was really the exigencies of the coronavirus that kind of forced everybody into the telehealth world. And I think that's kind of what's going to have to happen in a lot of medical things, because honestly, asking doctors to reform their profession, I mean,
It's
I don't
laughable.
think
Yep.
it's
It
going to
was
work.
It's laughable.
Charles. It was that action, and then also the fact they made it reimbursable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
It
right.
was
And
the
Doctors,
it was the
doctors have
incentives.
ruined the system.
in the
Doctors have
Trump
ruined the
regime,
system.
by the way, I also wrote the executive order, or not the executive order, but the guidelines around health savings accounts being used to pay for genetics, which has led to an explosion in people
Wow.
actually doing their own genetic sequencing using
I think
American dollars.
Charles, we should basically offer our services because as a doctor myself who has billed at $100,000 an hour to solve these problems regularly, $100,000 an hour, I want a chance to freaking speak. But all the doctors who would ruin it if they touched it, anyway, like don't get anywhere near this. Please don't try. I want doctors that actually have a sense of business and how the world works. This is ridiculous. It's just
so
ridiculous. And I'm perfectly happy to spend a bunch of time
Thank you,
backing this
Greg.
up, but
Thank
let's
you
wait for
so
everybody
much,
to
Greg.
jump on me. Yeah.
yeah, Leon
Thanks, Greg.
has an article, and Leon, let me do it for you if you don't mind. It's from the Wall Street Journal, and it's exactly to your point, Greg and Charles, which is the Wall Street Journal says COVID-19 gives boost to China's telemedicine industry. Precisely to Charles's point, the effect could be a model for expansion in other countries, which it absolutely is. For example, my close personal friend in Sweden, who really pioneered the space more than anybody, it's called Cree. It's now covering most of Europe at this point with incredible adoption. They just raised their D round. They just passed the unicorn status, and he used to tell me the exact same things that Charles and Greg and others are confirming, which is it used to be incredibly friction filled. They couldn't make any progress, and then COVID came along, and now they don't have a choice, and that common sense kind of forced the hands,
Can
as it is, of the market. So, Chris, you were saying?
I'd love to just chime in because I have no skin in this game. I'm a stay-at-home dad of three who jumped in to help the COVID ventilator crisis last March. And throughout the process, we've involved stakeholders at each level. The person who designed the ventilator you see in this picture, at least the medical parameters, is the former president of AARC, the American Association of Respiratory Care. The CMO at the company I CEO is a EMT doctor out of the Midwest who leads a 50-state interstate organization of hospitals. If you want to solve big problems, you got to get the best minds in the room, the egos out the door, and try to solve the problems. And like we're trying to do this crazy thing because we have a $3 piece of plastic that we can commercialize for $100 in America or give away for free in Africa where people in need actually need
Hey,
them,
Chris,
or in India right
Chris,
now. And
Chris,
and
let
sorry,
me
go
ask
ahead.
you a question. This is a legitimate question. Pick between someone, not even me, someone like Charles, or or a doctor, somebody who has an MD. Who do you think can help you the most in getting past those problems? Because I'm going to help you with this one way or the other, no matter what your answer. But who is the most critical person in the room to help you get through
sorry,
those problems?
this is for us. Where's
They're
Charles? I can't
they're
see Charles on the
phased.
stage.
His picture changed. He's right under me for us. They're unfortunately phase gated, Greg. I wish it was as simple as just saying there's one, but there
No,
isn't.
no,
I mean,
no.
I got called. Well,
You
no.
have to choose. You have to choose.
If it's if
This
it
is just
if it's for the patients, then I'm gonna go with the doctors.
then you're gonna fail,
No,
buddy.
you should go with the
No, no,
patients.
no.
You're gonna
Choose
fail.
patients.
Can
Choose
You're gonna
patients.
Ladies and
fail.
I don't think you can come up with that
You're gonna fail.
without both
Well,
stakeholders.
no,
yeah, I
You're gonna fail.
no,
I can help
As
you
a
not
no.
as a
fail.
physician, I
I
say
can help
choose
you not
patients.
fail.
Okay.
no,
Oh,
I
sorry.
mean
I can help you not fail because
I
that's the
didn't
first
hear
thing I would say
patients.
too.
You can't
I didn't
I
hear
would
patients,
no
and
no
I
you
no
can't
don't.
talk about
but listen
healthcare
listen
without having the two main stakeholders, which are the physician and the patient.
that is
Okay.
yeah,
bullshit. Whoever
yeah.
said
So
that
that that
is
that
that
is
is
that, that,
fucking
that is
that
somewhat
is
of
the
an
worst
Sorry,
argument.
advice that you
sorry,
could ever
sorry,
get.
sorry.
If you want
They
to
are
You need all of us. You need
if you
all
want to
of
they
us,
are
succeed,
not
guys.
the
That's
if
what
you
I'm
want to
they are
saying.
not the
succeed,
main
then you made the wrong
stakeholders.
answer.
No, but
Wait,
if you
wait,
think about it,
but
we're all
Well,
my
not the
patients.
main
We are
Hey,
all
go
stakeholder. I
ahead.
patients.
yeah, that's
Go
apologize.
ahead.
true.
Let's do the test.
Okay.
I mean,
Let's
here,
see.
One second,
like,
please. One mic, please. So I just invited up Sami. Appears that you do. You work in Sudan, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, you're in Boston, but you're Sudanese. Okay. But
yeah.
I would love your perspective, if you could, about
Oh God,
Amazon's big
another doctor.
ambitions in medical. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the people who got extremely excited when the big business giants got together a few years ago and said that they were finally going to put their resources and their brilliant minds and their money together to solve the problem of healthcare. And then last year they just
Just for
closed up
reference,
shop.
that was
Yeah,
Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon, that
Goldman
that
Sachs.
partnership you're talking
Goldman
about.
Sachs.
Yes,
Okay,
this is exactly the partnership I was talking about. And this is the
okay,
kind of partnership that you think might make a significant dent in the big issue that is healthcare in the United States right now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they closed up shop, I
Yep.
think, is an indicator that what you're dealing with is a completely different beast. My personal opinion, and so just to introduce myself,
Yeah.
I am originally from Sudan. I've been in the U.S. for about 9 years. I went to medical school in a place where, we learn medicine from books, and I have to imagine in my head what an MRI looks like. And so when I came here and started my residency training in Michigan, um, I came here with the outlook of an outsider. And I think that's what really benefited me. Because all the medical students, all the residents, they were all within the system. They were inside. So I came
Yes.
in from the outside. I was brand new. I saw things. I noticed things. I was in the Midwest. Things were a little bit sleepy. No offense to those of you who are from the Midwest here. And so then I decided to move to Boston because, all the things that are exciting in terms of healthcare, or a lot of them, with the exception of maybe California a little bit, but Boston is where everything comes out of. And so I did a year of Connected Health Innovation Fellowship. I practiced medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital. It's almost my 5th year. I teach at Harvard. I did
My
a year of Connected
condolences.
Health Innovation Fellowship. Yeah, and what I have come to realize, okay, is that everyone is so focused on making a massive impact, which is great. It's a pretty great thing to wake up to in the morning, saying, okay, today I decide that I'm going to have an impact on the healthcare of millions of people. All right. Well, you're going to get there. Okay. If you, have the right skills, you're determined, you guys know the recipe, you've done it before. But what people keep missing is the first patient and the first doctor.
What do
You need a small enough experiment. You need a
May I
small enough
just read a
experiment.
poem? May I
let
just
no
read a
let
poem?
Wait, can I
no
hear
no
what
no
he's saying?
May I
let him
read
Let
a
him
finish.
poem,
finish.
please? A
No.
poem, Tyler. A
No,
poem.
one second. You were making a great point, Tommy. Go, please finish.
I don't I don't know where the poem is, but maybe okay. I got you guys so excited that now you're
Yes.
thinking that there's
Shall
a
I
poem
compare
coming.
thee?
But it's I've been to conferences, the Connected Health conference, the I don't know what conference. There are millions of dollars flying all over the globe. People talking about healthcare technology and the role
Oh
of
yes,
artificial
Sammy.
intelligence
Preach.
and machine learning, and what are we going to be doing with devices, and I started sitting in those conferences, and then soon enough I started falling asleep. So there's a lot of buzz,
Thou
there's a
art
lot of hype,
lovely and
and
more
there's very
temperate.
little real. And so what we did, if you guys want to go check out our website, and it's MD Ziyara, and I'm happy to be joined here by actually Ahmed Wahba. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but he's from Hydra Studios, and he is one of the people who painstakingly spent time with us trying to optimize our platform so that our patients don't feel frustrated when they interact with their physician, and they spent time with our physicians so that they don't feel frustrated when they interact with our
So,
patients.
Sami, can I ask? Let me ask
Thanks for
you.
letting me speak.
You Amazon's big plans for healthcare in America. Do you think they will succeed or not ultimately?
I think it will depend on the model, because when you are Amazon, and I suppose you're speaking about Amazon Care.
Yes.
Okay, so what they're gonna need to what they're gonna have to deal with here is how am I the first thing is where's the location of healthcare delivery going to be over the next 5, 10, 15 years? I think that's the critical question. And I don't know if Amazon has answered that quite yet or not, but there's going to be a very big shift in terms of where healthcare is delivered, because it's increasingly going to meet people wherever they are. And one thing that I see coming here is, if you think of Macy's or think of Sears or all those malls who all of a sudden just went completely vacant, it's not going to happen in hospitals to the same extent. But this is where things are going to be moving towards over the next. I just want to say, I don't know. It's going to be hard, but maybe the next decade or two. So now, when you buy a house, you can have a gym in there, you can have a pool table, you can have a swimming pool, you can even have like a movie room. But then everyone's going to have a hospital room in there. You're going to have a bed, you're going to have a monitor, you're going to have a ventilator just in case, a BiPAP machine, a CPAP machine, all the basic medications. Okay, and so Amazon, if they're going to succeed, they're going to have to realize that healthcare is going to be wherever the patient is going to be, and if they
Going
spend
once, going
time.
twice.
Okay, is that
Hello?
so?
I like the
No, no,
point.
no. Is
I
that
think I think
Sammy?
I think
Sammy, I'm just trying to get to like where's it gonna go? Just
I
I'm
think
just
they're going to use the same way that they're doing these new barber shops. They're going to set up little mini clinics within,
I don't think
with
it's
Whole Foods
possible.
nearby.
It's
Yeah.
possible,
Look at
but how are you?
CVS bought Aetna.
Yep.
Let's look at that now.
Yep.
You know, CVS, the place that you're like, why the heck would I need to buy a Nerf ball for
Mm-hmm.
$57? You know, no one buys anything in there. It's because they're actually making the money. The gold mine is in the back, right?
Yeah.
And everything's a loss leader, and they don't care about the front. And now they're going to have this challenge for floor space and what to do with it. And they're going to turn them into clinics.
Yep. They need anchors. They need anchors. The
This is
physicians
what
are
happened with
huge.
I think
Theranos. This is what
Taylor
happened with
with
Theranos and
the
Walgreens.
I
COVID.
think what
I'm sorry, Taylor with COVID. What we see, I mean, healthcare is everywhere in education, in grocery store, anywhere in a community. How can you now separate technology from healthcare or any setting in a society?
Mm.
So, and back to Craig, what he mentioned to Chris. I agree and I don't agree. When you design something in a healthcare, if you don't have a physician and a patient as a stakeholder to have their input, then you're going to end up with all these challenges that we have with the EMR or EHR or any other platform in a
Yeah.
healthcare to make it work.
I think
That
we
is
get
my
that.
daily job.
I think
Yeah.
I want to hear.
But,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but when it comes to implement that and make it to be more successful and deliver it, definitely a physician is not going to be the person who can do it on its own or can be the big player in that part, but definitely with building it and designing it, if you eliminate a physician, if you
It's a
eliminate the patient, you're not gonna win.
Where
Thank
did
you.
where
This is
did
Can
Manal.
Thank
can
you,
I
David.
ask a quick question
Can
about
I chime in?
Amazon
Can
Care?
I chime in?
Hold on one
Hello,
second.
this is Leon.
One second, please. Where did Dr. Matt go? He was trying to chime in and then he disappeared from the stage.
Because he said that
I've been a
we are.
doctor for 10 years and I still haven't been able to talk about this. This is freaking ridiculous. This is not
Okay,
a joke.
doctor.
What is?
I would like
Lord.
to add
Yeah.
something at some point. I've worked with. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the Northwell healthcare system.
Yes.
It's one of the largest in the tri-state area. I've worked with project managers on their software implementation, and their clients are not the patients. Their clients are the doctors.
Yep.
That's who they supply their software for.
Yep.
They want to ensure that the doctors are the ones
Half
that know how to use it, that they gather the appropriate information for all of their analytics that are occurring. They're building software that is not compatible with other softwares. It's specifically
Yep.
under the Northwell healthcare system, so
Yep.
no one
more
else can
more than
utilize it.
half the
Um,
So
doctors, including the ones in this room, are violating the Hippocratic Oath for years by allowing patients to die as they fumble around with fax machines and think they're the solution to the problem. They're the ones that
Thank
created
you.
it, and they should be ashamed.
Thank you.
You should be ashamed of yourselves for killing your patients. Get
which is
Wait,
sit
still
wait, wait,
down.
wait.
flourishing.
What?
Electronic
Wait.
medical records
Wait, 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 wait,
are
wait.
cash registers,
Wait.
for
We
hospitals, and
didn't.
I
We
think
didn't
that's
come
in
up with
line with
EMRs.
what Dr.
Wait, wait,
Hadi said.
wait. We
Yes, you
didn't. No,
did.
no, no,
You
no. Wait,
support
wait,
it
wait.
every single day. Go fix it
Listen.
or go home.
Listen. The AMA supported that, but that didn't necessarily represent what doctors' best
Organization.
interests were, because the
I,
AMA
Go
I
fix
was
it or
working
go
with.
home.
can I just
Go
tell
fix
you
it or go
something?
home.
Can I just tell you something very specific? As a physician, when I go rounding in the hospital, okay, if I'm there between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and I have 12 patients to round on, I spend 2 to 3 hours with my patients, and the remaining amount of time I spend in front of the computer trying to tell Epic
Yes.
exactly what I
And the
was doing
fact
in
that you
those two
do
and a
that and
half
you are
hours, and
rioting
it
in the
takes
streets
typically
about
takes
that is
about
your
7 to 8
fault.
hours of my
Your
day.
fault.
Greg,
Your
can you
fault.
let them finish?
No.
That's
I've
not
let everybody
nice.
talk on that. I've let everybody talk on that point for like friggin' 45 minutes uninterrupted. It's your fault. It's your fault, Amit. It's your fault, Sami. It's
Preach,
y'all's fault.
brother Greek.
It
What
is
Greg,
is his
y'all's
preach.
fault,
fault
though? I don't understand what you're
Can
because
you
saying is
you
their
are
clarify
now
what
fault.
the
going and
fault is,
burning down the
please?
AMA for allowing this to continue. Burn it down. Go. Not. I'm not inciting a riot. To be clear, do not actually go burn anything down.
Burn
Do
it
not actually
down.
go burn
That's
anything
kind of
down.
Actually,
aggressive.
I
But
But
agree
We're
with
just
literally
Greg.
trying
go.
I
but
was on
Greg.
the
One
Literally
topic
second.
go.
too.
But
Shh,
Protest.
wait, wait.
Stop working.
but
Hold
Stop
on.
working.
but
Stop working.
Wait,
but
wait. No, no,
but
but Greg, have you?
Strike.
I just want to make sure Greg has finished his point.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I'm literally saying, but by the way, do not do anything violent. Do not do anything violent. But
Yeah.
literally stop working.
She
Strike.
protested. Protested.
Strike. Strike right now until the system is fixed
Yep.
because these fax machines
Oh,
and the people out here who think that HIPAA is the reason that you have to fax, you are wrong.
That's
You are
monopoly.
wrong. But you can
One
literally I
thousand
set up
percent,
this
Greg.
system. I
It's
set up this
absolutely,
system.
Greg, absolutely. And especially in New York, faxes are used specifically because of encryption and
Uh,
because they
thank
don't
you for
want
Yep.
the
supporting
Come
me.
information
on, come
being
on, let's
Thank you
go.
for
Hey,
supporting me, but I just wanted to talk. Thank you for supporting me. But I have set up this system. I have done this work. I have done this work, and the thing is, when you get around all these silly rules, you don't have to fax. But that takes effort and work, and it means that if you work for a giant healthcare organization, you need to quit right now. And if you aren't putting in your
well,
credentials
I
and
don't
say,
think that's
no,
the,
wait,
I don't think
wait,
that's
One
the,
second, Sami.
wait.
I'll give you the mic. Go ahead, Greg.
Like
sorry. Thank you.
literally,
Go ahead,
Sami,
Greg. Yeah.
I have been a doctor for 10 years, and
It's
it
just
sounds
easy
like
for you to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
my
Sami, let him
lord,
finish. Sami,
my
please let him
lord.
finish. Please
No,
let
it
him
is
finish.
not easy for me to say. I did this. My wife also did this. She is also a doctor. You don't know me, Sammy. I don't know you, but you introduced yourself. You have no idea who I am. What, you read my profile and see that I have money? I made that money by doing what I'm saying. I put my money where my mouth
Please
is.
introduce yourself. I introduced myself first before I started talking,
Yeah,
so
but
I can.
listen,
Everybody in
Sami,
here
I'm
knows
just
me
finding
except
out
for
you're a doctor.
you.
Yeah, Sami, hang on.
Sami,
All right.
Like,
I don't.
Sami, hang on.
Can,
I think we
can we
just
be
need
less
to set you up
antagonistic,
with what
please?
this room is.
Yeah.
Well,
So
no, Sami, we
I
need
think
to tell
Greg,
you
you
what
we
this
got
room
we
is.
have your. I think we got your point in this with the
yeah,
systematic
thank you,
faults.
Tyler.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
literally doctors' faults, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. And if you want to reform, I am happy to help
Yeah.
you.
Sorry. So I just
Tyler,
wanna,
I just
I
want
would
if
have
I
to
can.
disagree. I'm sorry,
It's
Greg.
your
It's not
fault.
doctor's
okay.
And
fault.
I can
It's
help
I'm
you
just gonna
it's
have
reform
the
to
if
say
you want to
institution.
care for
something here. Your approach
patients.
is
We
If you
got.
not.
only care about
It's not the
Your
yourselves,
approach to
then
individual
it.
it won't
doctor.
work.
It's
I
the
It
cannot
won't work if you
institution.
quit.
only care
My
about
patients are
yourself.
Okay,
relying
A
on
Greg.
me.
self-loving,
My
Greg.
yep,
patients are
Okay,
relying on
Greg.
me.
We
yep.
have your
I
point.
just won't let
I'm
him
not
get the
gonna
last
quit.
word.
Right.
I won't let him get the last
That
word.
no, but you've
So,
made your point very succinctly. Everyone understands your point, and now it's their turn to
I
rebut.
think maybe you should consider going
okay,
back
but
into
they take
medicine. I
lots of
don't know.
airtime and it's
That's
annoying and
fine.
it's basically like it's an assault on my ears.
That's okay. But
I have a
we
solution
understand
when
your
you want to
point, and now we're going to hear
That's why the
what you
healthcare
feel are
system
very
doesn't
worth.
change.
Yeah.
We've
They
all got to
need
be in
uh,
the
somebody
same
to
room.
verbally punch them in the face or they won't ever fix it.
They
But here
just
I
got
am,
it.
helping their patients.
You just gave it to them, and now we're going to hear
Where's
their
Dr.
response.
Sammy?
Yeah. So
Taylor and Annette, I mean, you're right. If you're looking at the current EHR and technology that we have in place, you're right. The patient doesn't have a voice, and they're not the one that's using it. But when you're looking at the Cure Act, part of the responsibility of the providers is to provide a patient platform as well. And in that patient platform, the patient is or the family is able to access the data. So we are looking at what we have now and where we want it to go. So we're not saying the current technology it's this or that. The technology is good that we have, but there is a lot of room for improvement. And physician and the patient are stakeholder. We cannot eliminate them. We need to hear them. They need to have an input if we want to have a better healthcare in the future that is in compliance with the policy, but also it's a more patient-centered care, and it can help us to have a better healthcare. Thank you.
What is a stakeholder? I'm just sorry. I'm sorry. There's a lot of buzzwords in this
Yeah.
discussion that I don't quite understand. My understanding is the skin in the game question is really what's at stake here, right? So if you're a doctor, you don't really have an incentive to keep me alive. You don't get rewarded financially. You don't get punished
Mm-mm.
if I die, right? So I think we have a hard time here where there's a lot of kind of I don't want to call it virtue signaling because that's cruel, but basically there's this sort of attitude that because I studied for many years in the medical profession that I'm somehow an expert on this. I heard this argument a lot when I was dealing with cops, where cops could tell
Right.
they could recognize faces much better than machines could. And pretty much every time I've heard this sort of debate, when it's machines versus man, the machines ultimately win when we remove the regulations, which of course we've been allowed to do because of COVID. So I'm just curious when people say stakeholders, do they mean like we have to care what the doctors think? I mean, and then you also say patient-centered healthcare. I don't know how you can have both. I mean, it seems to me
Great
like
question.
that's really what's
Thank you,
up.
Charles.
Thank
The
you.
Thank you. If I
stakeholder,
can bring in the
the one
voice
has
of
affected or effective in this affected or be affected. So if you're looking at that, the patient, it can be affected with what the technology we are putting in place, and the physician is the one who is using and may affect that patient as a stakeholder. So when we need to look at healthcare outside the benefit and money as a tool, as a technology that we provide. How are we going to improve the healthcare? And I believe if I am as a provider, or I am someone who is developing a technology, also I can be that consumer or patient at some point. I'm going to use that technology. I'll be affected by that policy. That's what we need to look at our healthcare more closely. And that's why the patient can be a stakeholder. The physician is a stakeholder. The nurse who works in the front line are a stakeholder, and all of this. And it's very difficult when a technology developer developing something, then there are bringing it to the healthcare setting, and we trying to make it work. And sometimes it has a broken part that we cannot fix it to be in compliance with the policy requirement from a CMS, or what my patient really needs to be able to provide the best tailored patient-centered care. The patient-centered care means when Charles comes, when Greg comes, or Manas comes to the hospital, I'm looking at those individually, not as a whole. I have an umbrella that has to cover everyone. No, I have a different need, and you have a different need. Thank you. This
Personalized.
is
Okay.
Manal, and I'm done.
I just
Personalized
wanna
medicine.
Pause.
add that the answer, I think the answer to your question is twofold. So you're gonna have to look at it from the perspective of, historically speaking, the law had uh, typically lagged behind technology by decades, right? So this is a situation where you have such advanced technology that a lot of people believe in, and the old legacy systems won't open the door. It's tricky. What can you do? I don't want to say and get away with, but how do you get enough buy-in from the patient population and some of the physicians that you are going to need in your journey to making that happen, whether you like it or not?
Yes. Good. It's a
And
great,
then
Samia.
the other thing yeah,
I
the
love your
ethical
question.
perspective is you're probably going to have to use your own second ethical compass. Yeah.
I love your question. I would point to Amazon having 175 million Prime members, which could be the big, and not to mention their now millions of employees, which could be the beginnings. Give them enough leverage, right, and to build the system.
I trust Amazon a
And
lot
they're
more
growing at 100 million a year.
to keep
Yeah,
me
so I,
alive.
I want to 2 points.
Just to
I
be
want
very
to,
clear.
Dr. Matt, welcome back. Would love your input, and then Faraz has a couple questions he'd like to ask. So let's go to Dr. Matt and then Faraz.
Actually, do a quick recap. Is there a specific question?
That's all right. Now let's go to hang tight, Matt. Go ahead, Faraz.
Right. So thank you very much, Tyler. I'm not going to point fingers at any doctors, but I know a couple that are actually doing things to fix the system. I just want to ask something of the doctors in this room that I haven't heard of, and you know, I like to think that all doctors try and protect their patients. When a new technology comes out, and please don't answer me on the spot, I'll stop asking very shortly. When a new technology comes out or a new regulation comes out, how many of you actually go to the great lengths and depths to try and understand that new technology and the new regulation to see if it actually protects your patients? Because I'm hearing a lot of things around HIPAA, and I'm hearing a lot of things around Amazon Cares. Amazon Cares? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, that there's something seriously wrong with that, and seriously wrong with the statement of HIPAA and SRAMS and GDPR. And I find the doctors in this room completely ill-informed as to the privacy of their patients if they seriously think that HIPAA or anything like that protects your patients, or that Amazon sincerely cares with some of the things that are happening in the cloud, and what's happening with your patients' records, and what's happening with EMR systems, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll just point that out there, and I'd love to hear from some of the doctors there. I know Matt, I've heard him speak before. I know he's very, very well informed on these subjects. I won't point fingers at some of the other doctors that I haven't heard from. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Yeah, is that a good context for you, Matt?
Can I echo real quick? Finally, this is Leon. You promised me Mike, I'm gonna jump on this.
And no, we didn't
So
promise you, but you're more than welcome, Leon. Go
We
ahead.
didn't, but we.
So you guys wanna let me
Leon,
just say,
put
if you
your
guys
mouth
want to
closer to the mic.
understand.
Cannot hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
could you get closer to the mic?
if you want to understand what's the difference. I mean, by the way, let's start with this. The United States have the best healthcare system in the world for the rich. That's our conclusion a few weeks ago after debate, after I threw out a bunch of bricks and get a black eye. But everyone agreed on this. How is that? Look, check my profile. I just list numbers. I love numbers. I don't give a shit about other like propaganda. So look at numbers. And then my question to you, if you guys are slow reader. So the life-saving drug, one called PD-1, China only costs like 4% to 7% of the same drug, similar drug, than the same drug in the United States. The simple procedure called episiotomy, I probably pronounced it wrong, pretty much means removal of the appendix in China, costs somewhere between 1/10 to 1/30 of the same procedure in the United States. Don't tell me Chinese doctors are dumb, because this is such a simple procedure.
Yeah.
So, I'm an engineer. I just look at the results.
Yeah.
I don't care what you guys are talking about. You have this technology, that technology, this
Leon, it
simple
sounds
stuff.
like you're behind the Great Firewall. What's going on with your microphone?
Yeah, Leon, to this point.
I'm driving. I'm driving to get my.
Okay.
By the way, Pfizer,
Love you, buddy.
Hey, drive safely, Leon.
Okay, Leon.
Yeah, you need to be.
It's okay.
So,
Listen, full self-driving is not here. You need to be careful. Full self-driving is not here. Be careful.
Driving. I can
okay, guys.
hop in on HIPAA, GDPR, and everything like that.
One. I thank you for your points, Leon. Yes, I got you, Leon.
Thank you for your point, Leon.
Thank you. So just as a quick point, as an American working in Europe, I was very surprised when I broke my ankle and went to a hospital in Copenhagen, and was, as an American, a little concerned about the cash register moment. And I came to find out they don't have cash registers. They didn't even know how to bill me. There was going to be no bill, and I can bring the crutches back whenever I'm done with them, if I so choose. And there was no cost for anything, and they wouldn't know how to charge me if they wanted to. To that point, Leon, I could do any procedure in Copenhagen and it wouldn't cost me a penny. They wouldn't know how to charge me for it, in fact. So the different systems have different costs, of course. Dr. Matt,
I'm simply speaking, the United States create a lot of problem and use a bunch of bandits.
Leon, can I jump in real quick? Leon, I can make your point for you. America has a lot of problems. We get that point for sure. So, Dr. Matt, do you have a thought? Have you heard enough to make a comment?
So I think the biggest thing, and this might help kind of bridge with the tech crowd, is that healthcare hides behind HIPAA, like social media hides behind the First Amendment.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to not to have to do stuff. Like, let's be honest, Twitter is a
Thank you.
private company
Protections.
where they can choose
Profound,
to
Matt.
use it if they want to. Same thing with HIPAA. It's more broadly defined than it should be as an excuse to not do stuff. That being said, as a physician that's into technology, I would probably put myself like as like I don't know, not an early adopter for sure, somewhere on like the right side of that adoption curve. And I
Hey
think
Matt, how do I waive?
most physicians are generally risk averse because it's one of those things where it's like it might work for an N of one, but for me it has to work for it doesn't have to be a randomized clinical control trial, but like it has to work for almost all of my patients safely for me to think about adopting it widely. So that's kind of
How,
physicians' mindset
how do
on some
I
of these things.
waive HIPAA? Like, can I just say, like, going from now on, like, I don't care. You guys can have my medical records. Like, they're yours. Go, knock yourself out. Like, how do I do that? Because it would seem to
I'll
me
give
like
you.
a
This
problem.
is something that we've been thinking about. And I think there's a solution to it. Like HIPAA and GDPR say that basically you are legally you are allowed to get your
Yeah.
data from your doctor. So why can't we just create a system, a bot, basically that requires every single
Yep.
place that we've ever been to require our health data, and if they don't give it to us in a certain time, we sue. And so basically, we can create after that this peer-to-peer
That's
system.
already in
Simply
place
cuts
right
So
off.
Yeah.
now,
that's
isn't
called
it,
a personal
Aslak?
health record. That's a blue button. That's been in place. The
For
U.S.
Medi
federal government has allowed for
Yes.
that. That's there.
Medicare.
That's already there.
No, no,
My
it's
Well,
not there.
right
Lord.
now,
We do have, we do
Here's
have.
here's the thing.
As of April 4th, the blocking rule, you can the providers get fined if they don't provide
Yeah.
you with the information in a period of
Ugh.
time.
Like
All right. So
That
I have
the
should
an
get
problem is
used. That should be
nobody's
used
doing
as a
what no
tool.
one
Chris,
does.
Hey,
No
they'll
one
pay
does what
they'll
a
pay
basic
25 they'll
entrepreneurial,
pay
do
25
basic
some
K.
research.
entrepreneur,
They'll pay
Chris, do
25
some
K
basic
research.
judge.
entrepreneurial behavior, basic entrepreneurial behavior
Chris,
is
do
to
some
go to the
research.
customer and go to the customers. If you go talk to the customers right now, the ways that you're describing that the healthcare system works ideally when it comes to information transfer are total malarkey. It doesn't work that way for the people
Thank
on the
you.
ground.
Thank you.
It doesn't
Thank
work
you.
that way for the people on the ground, and only entrepreneurs take a version of the Hippocratic Oath, believe it or not. And look, I'm not being funny. I am a doctor. Like this is something that people don't know about me. I don't put it on my profile. But the fact of the matter is, I know a lot more about this. I'm married to a doctor too. I helped her set up her system as a practicing doctor. I helped her set up her system. We have to be super careful about it because we have extreme wealth. So if we fuck this up, we actually have assets for people to come after. So I know a lot about this, and I also have been a patient, and I also have patients in my family, and all of you do too. And now tell me, somebody stand up right now and say that doctors are doing everything they can to fix this problem.
Oh,
Come on.
I don't know. I think
Oh,
nobody's going
I
to
don't think
argue
we've
with you
ever
on
I
that,
don't think
though.
we ever thought that.
They are the ones that are the most powerful to affect the change, and they aren't really trying that hard.
I
Actually,
I don't
admins
agree
are.
with you. I
Admins
don't
are.
think it's the
Debate that. I
doctors.
don't know. Let's hear from the other doctors. I would say we are not the most powerful to make that
No,
change, but
it's
I'd
the
like to hear from
admins
other
are.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
opinions.
are. You
it's
could
the
literally go
administrators.
on strike
Exactly.
right now and you make enough money to do it.
I
Can,
don't think
can
we're
I
allowed
just
to.
add something to comment? Maybe
Band
earlier
together,
on.
unionize. Band together,
I don't think
unionize
we're
on
allowed
this
to unionize.
problem
If someone
and
could
go on
explain that
strike.
to me.
Go on
I
strike.
am pretty sure we're not allowed to
We're
I
unionize.
not.
have,
If another doctor can explain that, I'm pretty sure we're
like,
not allowed to in the
yes, you
United
are.
States.
Yes, you are. You
Please
can
show me
unionize
where
Of
that
under a
is.
course
different
you
thing.
are.
You
okay.
can unionize
You know,
not as doctors. You can unionize, like, this is freedom of expression, folks. Go fight that. If you can't do that, go fight that. That's maybe the first battle you need to fight. Don't
Well,
just don't
hold
just
on.
shrug off the problem. I am
Okay,
one of
Greg, you could
you.
just say that.
I
Please
want to
show
do
that to
this.
me. Greg.
Yeah,
Please just show
absolutely.
that to me. I
Okay,
would
what do you need
love
to
to do
see?
that.
Why are you putting the burden on me? But
She
yes,
just
I
told us to
will take the
unionize.
burden.
Oh wait, Greg,
I
you
will
said
take
you're
the
a doctor.
burden.
You must know
Would
a
you
lot,
like me
Greg.
to help you? Would you like me to help you
Greg. As
unionize,
an
Matt?
entrepreneurial doctor, Greg,
Matt,
as an entrepreneurial doctor, please
answer the
show me the
question.
law that says we can do this.
all you
You
have to
don't
do is
have
go to the
it's
NLRB. It's pretty easy. Go to
the
NLRB. They have. You guys have not tried. If you try, you'll find out. But
Can I
nobody's going
speak
to
on this
teach you.
space as someone who actually
well.
lives in the political sphere with doctors? Um,
Well, listen, if all of you want help in solving this problem and actually forming a union to solve this issue or actually banding together, then yes, I will absolutely help you. I will put money into the game and I will help you. But you have to message me and you have to be a doctor. And if you are a doctor and you want to message me and you want my help on this problem, then I will help you. But you actually have to put something on the line. You're going to have to take a risk, a big risk. And by the way, going to medical school is not it is a risk, but it is not the biggest risk. and I'm going to ask you to be risky people. Risky
Gre-
people. Put it all on the line for your
Yeah,
Hippocratic oath.
and so, Greg, we are actually seeing the starts of people unionizing. So residents and interns are starting to unionize in places like California, and that's making its way into New York and into the rest and some other states in the East Coast. There is a group of doctors organizing to be a counterforce to the AMA. To basically be pushing a more patient-centered, justice-focused, humanitarian aspect to healthcare.
Where is it? I'll send it. I'll send it as much. Like, what do you want me to do? I'll send it 20 grand right now. Is it?
Greg,
Can I?
I will email you, right? Or how to get
What
in
do you
touch
need?
with you.
50
I'm
grand?
happy to do that,
100 grand?
right?
Yeah. Like, what do you need?
I'm happy to do that. But I will tell you that the pandemic has demonstrated to doctors that the system is fundamentally broken, that patients are suffering at the end of it, that we have had a part in in the responsibility of creating this program, right? And I don't think doctors are under any assumption that they didn't have a component, right? Doctors made a lot of money, right? Like through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, based upon the legislation that had been passed that allowed them to make money, right? And they moved away from being solo practitioners because it was felt that they could make more money seeing patients than they could doing the administrative work. And so we see this sort of consolidation that happens with
And it
doctors.
turns out that
It,
absolute power corrupts absolutely, Heisen.
right. And what I would say is that,
Administrators
yeah,
who
and
are
so
who are
that's
former doctors in many cases.
no, I would say that most administrators are actually not doctors, right? Now, that depends upon
Do
what
you have the
level you're
stats on
talking
that? That's
about.
not true.
But it
That's not
depends
That
true.
upon
that
what
is
level you're
true,
talking about. But
actually.
most CEOs are actually not doctors; they are
Okay, well that's
MDs,
true.
right? And what I will also say to you is that the highest level that a doctor typically gets to is chief
So what you're
medical
saying
officer.
is that doctors need to become better business people, for example, by listening to me.
Well, I would say that what doctors need to do is a better job of organizing, bringing patients along, because
No, they
that
need to
is
be better
actually
business people
that
because they
is
need to
the
become the CEOs. Doctors need to
right. So
learn to become CEOs.
right, but
And they need
there
to
are
stop
lots
being
of.
so arrogant that they think they already know.
I don't think that we think that we know. I think a lot of us
If
want to
you want
take
to learn
care
to
of
become a
patients,
CEO, I
right?
will help you.
But
I know how to do it. I actually I have multiple doctorates in that. I mean, not
right,
like my
and
other
and
doctor, like the
and
actual doctoral degree that I have. Like, but like, if you want to become a CEO, Heisem, I can help you, but only if you stop. Actually, the sentences that you're uttering right now are the first things that I would try to beat out of you gently in order to make you a great CEO.
you know, Greg, I think that one
I
of the
want
things
to.
that yeah, and I appreciate that. I think that when I went to medical school, it's because I cared about people, right? And I
Great.
wanted to take care of them, and
I
I wanted to
believe
be a
you.
part of their lives. And
I
so
believe you.
what?
The reason
Right,
I
and
want to
what?
make you a great CEO is because I care about you and I care about everybody else. That would be
Right,
great. But you're not being like you don't have what it takes yet. We can form you. We can make you into a great CEO. We could do that with every doctor. We know doctors are smart. We just need to make them great CEOs.
But Greg,
And honestly,
that sounds more
let's take a look.
that sounds more
No,
difficult than
Tyler.
letting Amazon
Tyler.
take it over. Converting
Yes,
every
let me give
doctor
you an
into a good
example.
CEO. You think
Let me
that's
give
that's scalable?
we can yes, we can do it. We can do it. And it's
It's too costly.
exactly the same problem that exists in flight training. Doctors
Greg, if they
generally
wanted
make
to,
terrible pilots. And so what happens is they go in and they have conquered the world by becoming a doctor, just like their moms always wanted them to be. And they go through medical school and they freaking kill it. And they get out and they start making the money finally. And they're king of the world and they can afford a little airplane. And they go to the training and they think that the flight instructor works for them. But they need to understand what it's like to go through boot camp and learn to become pilots. And the ones that don't kill themselves in Beechcraft Bonanzas, also known colloquially as doctor killers because they're affordable by doctors on their mediocre salaries versus the airplanes that I fly that I can afford because I'm a great CEO. And this is the problem. Like, they go kill themselves unless they treat their flight instructor as the authority and the boot camp instructor. Look, if you want to learn to become a great CEO, you're going to have to kiss the ring like I did when I learned to fly. I treated my flight
Greg,
instructor like he
I'm
was
sorry.
God.
I don't
Greg,
want the
can I just
doctor
say something, bro?
doing neurosurgery on me to be studying to be a CEO. I want him to understand
Not
exactly
every
what he
Brother,
needs
doctor
to do,
has to
and
be a
that's what he needs to
CEO.
focus
What
Greg,
a
on.
brother, can
non-point. Not every
brother,
doctor
can
has to be a CEO, but we need
brother,
doctors that want to be CEOs to be the CEOs over these problems.
brother, can
Not
I
every
talk to you for a
doctor.
sec?
Let's go,
and
Greg,
Faraz. Hold on. Go ahead, Faraz.
Greg, I respect opinions. We usually agree on opinions, and I agree with you on the entrepreneurial side of what you're saying, man. And most of the conversations that we've been having here, I agree with you 100%. But there's also a thin line that I believe we're about to cross now. We're talking to doctors that have also stood for the world here, and that have cared throughout COVID.
Are you
So
tone
listen,
policing me for us? Are you
no,
tone policing me?
I'm
Because I will
trying
throw
to,
you right
bro.
out of here. I will throw you right out. I don't even have a green button, and I'll throw you right
Hey,
out of
I'm
here.
that's kind of
trying
I
to
will
supportive.
throw you right
listen.
out of
I'm
here.
trying to
Don't
be
tone police me.
respectful.
I love you,
I'm
but don't
tone
tone
policing
police
you.
me. Nope, nope.
I'm
I
tone
won't take it.
policing you. Come
I
on.
am breaking up. Nope. Like here. How about this, doctors? You are all complicit in the
Don't do
killing
that, man.
of.
Come on,
No, you're all
Greg.
complicit. No,
You've
you're all
Come on,
complicit.
man.
but you made
You're
that
all
We're
point,
all
complicit in this
respectful
Greg.
problem.
individuals.
Okay,
Greg,
Faraz,
Yeah.
hold on, Faraz.
We don't have
we're all
I'm
Tyler. We
respectful
don't have to
I'm
do
individuals,
a
this,
man.
doctor.
guys.
I'm a
Yeah,
doctor, and I'm
It's
complicit.
not
I'm
gonna
just
be
trying to solve it.
constructive.
yeah, but
But
I'm
you
Greg,
trying
didn't
to solve
solve.
it.
You
Faraz,
didn't help
Faraz,
people during
please,
COVID,
I'm
man.
a doctor, and
Faraz,
I'm
You
hold
trying to
on.
guys be
solve it.
respectful, man.
Faraz, hold on one
Yeah.
second. Greg, you're being very repetitive with your "I'm a doctor" routine. It's starting to get a little moish, honestly. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's all right.
okay, but
Actually, can I
Well,
add
I thought
something?
you liked
I
Mo,
have
Tyler.
I
something that
do.
I'd like to
Do
add
you like
that
Mo?
goes
I
back
do.
to the
Yeah,
stakeholder
Do you want me to read
conversation.
you a poem? A
yeah,
poem, perhaps?
Greg, listen. I like you too.
Shall
Don't
I
take it the
compare
wrong
thee
way,
to a
man.
summer's day? Thou
yes,
art more lovely and more temperate, Tyler.
Greg, don't take
yes.
it the
Tyler.
wrong way, bro.
Tyler.
Don't take it.
Tyler. No,
Greg,
Faraz.
Greg,
Faraz, sit
Greg.
down.
This not.
Yeah,
So,
no, no. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well.
I mean,
All right.
He's being a
I'd
So
child.
like to
so
I'd like to
so
add something that goes
I
back
think
to
You're
the
being
you.
a
stakeholder
child, honestly.
conversation we were having like 20 minutes ago, but I
so
Oh,
on
couldn't
the
get a
God.
word
doctor
in edgewise.
question, just
Yes.
to be very clear about this. So I have 11,000 people, 218 genomes right now that I got through COVID Forecaster, which is a website I set up where people can take their 23andMe and Ancestry results and get a better sense of their genetics. Now, I don't know if there's anyone in here who's a doctor who's served 11,000 patients in the last year. Actually, the last 6 months, I guess. And I get the notes from these people thanking me for letting them know that they have a high risk or low risk so they can go visit their grandkids. And of course, I use the latest in the medical research, right? I didn't want to get in trouble with the FDA. I met with the FDA, spoke with them quite a bit about the genetics of extreme COVID risk, and got to know like a lot of the people at the FDA for other companies I want to do. I think the problem in general that I have with doctors is that they have no incentive really to actually be correct. So what I mean by this is when I was 8 years old, my mother was told that she had about a 5% chance of surviving cancer. It was pretty bad cancer. And she is now still with us. I guess it's been like 24 years now since. So doctors are often wrong on a lot of things. And it's partly because they don't actually bear the costs of the decisions that they make. And this is true for a lot of professions. I don't want to single out
True,
doctors. I think it's true of
true.
teaching. I think it's true of a lot of professions throughout our economy. Now, in my case, I build companies. The companies, sell to customers. So the customers don't like it. They don't have to buy it. And then I go broke, right? So that's just sort of how it works, right? As a practical matter. Now, I think the problem with a lot of the doctors in general. And look, I was a straight A student too. Like, I was a bit less conformist than a lot of you. But nevertheless, I was a straight A student too. And I remember that a lot of the times what they do is they are sort of overwhelmed by a very bad system that has all kinds of problems. They feel powerless. And this is true of pharmacists. I used to be married to a pharmacist too. It's true of nurse practitioners. I used to have a sister-in-law who was terrible, who was a nurse practitioner. So I will just say in general, like my heart goes out to you guys, but you really need to start thinking about the problems in a more innovative way. And to the extent that Amazon can do that, I mean, I trust Amazon given that I spend, thousands and thousands of dollars a year on Amazon to keep me alive, a lot more than I trust any general practitioner in the country. They have skin in the game, right? So that's kind of what I think what Tyler's getting to and sort of others are getting to
And
is
so
like,
am I.
these things will keep, yeah, and Heyman too. And I think, by the way, this is not um, I would say like there's a lot of doctors who know these problems,
Hey,
and the problem
Charles.
in general with a
Yeah.
lot of the just one final point. There's a lot of people in the tech industry that kind of go over to any industry they're trying to invade, and they basically try to dictate a lot like the doctors you accused Greg of dictating do to other folks. And I think really what it comes down to is how can we be the best servant here? When a real servant ask deeper questions of themselves. They don't assume they have all the answers. So that's kind of my just general critique of the medical profession, and
Charles, I want
that's
to
how.
put a fine point on what you're saying to help you, because basically what you're saying is everybody in this room right now, I want you to imagine something with me, and thank you for giving me the space. I want you to imagine that you have two phones, and you have just learned that your most precious loved one, whether that's someone else or yourself, has cancer, and at the end of the two phones, one is a random doctor and the other one is Jeff Bezos, and you can be promised in this scenario that the person at the end of the phone will try everything they can do to solve your problem within their power. Which phone do you use?
Yes, yeah, that's going to be the question in the room you create right now. So we've run the course of this room. Greg's going to open a room under the Duffy.org room title, and that's going to be
That's a great idea.
one
Yeah.
of many of the interesting questions Greg's going to raise there. I think that's a fantastic poll to start with. So thank you to everybody who's joining us. So we just ran a little. We're now 10 minutes over the third hour here, and we only covered
Greg,
one.
do you want to create it before we leave?
Yeah,
Greg,
go ahead,
do you
Greg,
want
and
to create it
credit.
so that we can drive
And
all the people.
this is a unique room for two reasons. Today was the first day we were the number one room in Clubhouse, and for English rooms specifically, twice.
Woo-hoo.
Right now, currently,
Woo-hoo.
and also an hour ago. And then it was also the first time we never did any headlines. It was we only.
I know. I was wondering. I was so wondering about this.
Yeah.
We did one Amazon earnings.
We never got past the first headline.
Amazon jobs.
We never
jobs.
spoke about the EU
Where's my tech
suing
news?
Apple.
Yeah. So we will do the tech news. It means we might have to do the Saturday room after all.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Good excuse.
No. Take the week.
we'll see
Hey,
what
Tyler,
happens.
whenever you do one on what regulation could be or should be,
Yeah.
that would be a good one, because if tech isn't coaching the government, then we wait for the government to coach tech.
Yep.
Okay, guys. So I have a room title.
Yep.
And it is Jeff Bezos or Random MD, and there's two little telephones in it at the beginning, two little red telephones.
Okay, have you set
so
it
if you
up?
do want to
Have you
have,
set it up now?
I'm just about to go set it up. I'm just about to go set it up.
Opportunity cost
See
would be
you,
like you can't reach him.
Go
Yep.
set it up.
Greg.
We'll
See you in there,
send
Greg.
people there.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, by the way,
Thank you.
Tyler,
Hug it out.
Tyler,
We're doing fight. No
Tyler, I
fights
think you
here.
have the thing at 7 o'clock tomorrow. You meant Monday, right? The next one.
Yes. Yeah. If everyone can click on the title of the room, you can see the schedule for the Monday event. There might be a special unscheduled Saturday event to be determined. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Okay.
Tyler, I think we have it by mistake for 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Ah, okay.
Monday.
I'll fix it.
Monday, 7 o'clock.
I'll fix it. Thanks, Cal.
It's Monday. Thanks, everyone. What a week. Loved it this week.
Tyler and Cal, we just have to chat later on, not today, but about setting up the other two.
Okay.
So it should be May 3rd, right? Not May 1st.
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah.
It's fixed now.
If you do the Saturday one, that's just different.
Yeah. I said it. I changed it from Saturday to Monday now. For one. Yeah. Thank you for noticing that.
See everyone Monday.
All right.
Let's see who's going to lead first, Tyler or Cal? He always leads that.
What? Are we finishing?
Yep. Oh, Kai. Sorry, Kai.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Oh, dear. Sorry.
We're still here.
No,
for
that's
you.
fine.
And I want to give a quick apologies to Chris and Gilbert and Tom. And there was at one point about 8 people, all with their hands raised, all gentlemen, and the stage was just a bit
filled with men.
Heavy on the male side. I was waiting for women to join the raise the hand queue, but Chris, you were most notably at the top of the queue for a very long time, and I did want to get you in there. So my very personal apologies to you, Chris. Let me get you up on stage.
That's what I was wondering. Where is he?
Yeah, he had his hand raised forever. So, Chris, I just wanted you to know the context.
He's probably not there. He's probably
Dr. Andy as well never got to chime in.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah, I really wanted to hear the Chinese
medicine
perspective. Yeah.
Chinese perspective on what again?
Well, we were talking about how Amazon's ambitions in the medical space, and how potentially, given the size of their employee base and the size of the Amazon Prime customers, it's millions and millions of folks, that they are in an interesting position. And Heyman did this really impressive sleuthing work to look at their job postings, the job opening positions that they have opening. It's very clear what their ambitions are huge to leverage all of their assets from, Alexa and the brick and mortar presences and the cloud and everything to potentially, privatize, make a really ambitious private medical, using Amazon Prime as a gateway or a Trojan horse to the health insurance, and doctors coming to your house through Amazon Prime kind of example. So it's I'm curious in what way is China innovating? Because China innovates, independently these days in very impressive ways. Was curious to hear in what ways is China innovating on the medical side.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I
Because
do. Yeah.
I'm on the golf course and the signal is not wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so at the moment, do you guys know that Tencent is about to be fined with 10 billion RMB?
I didn't know that. No.
So after Alibaba is fined, Tencent is going to be fined.
That's right. That's right. We saw that headline
on the
today.
same
Yeah,
scale.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So basically, yes, you're right. The potential is there, but the number one issue for China is anti-monopoly, and so
right.
Unfortunately, the company with a muscle to be able to do this is
Oh.
exactly Tencent and Alibaba.
That's a great point.
A vast amount of data and leverage due to their many complicated web of investment.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they dare not do anything at this stage because they are right at the epicenter. And so what you're going to find is essentially a lot of smaller startups. So I think right now it's a best time for new Chinese tech startup to get investment. There are a lot of hot money, there are a lot of government subsidy, and there are a lot of investors' money who don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So healthcare under the backdrop of pandemic, and of course the neglected healthcare of a lot of people due to the pandemic sucking too much health resources away. So this is a golden time. But I think it's unlikely for a dominant data player to emerge within short space of time in China.
Or
People are
US
actually
too.
very scared to grow too big. Yeah, Europe, and agree. So yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to look at what's going to happen in US with Amazon. I think you're going to see that a lot of Chinese companies are going to do.
Greg has set up a room on that just now. That perspective that you have, I'm going to head over there as well. But it's going to be interesting to bring the Chinese perspective in there because I think we didn't have that today actually at the level that you've just brought it in. So we missed you.
No, sorry. Because I was in
a
windy position at that time. And okay, I think I'll head over to Greg's room if this room is going to be closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my input on this one.
Oh, perfect. That's the brilliant context as usual. Thank you for that, Kai.
And Singapore also has a very good system. Cheryl probably knows a lot more.
I don't know what you're talking about here. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We're actually
okay. We'll go to the next one.
We're starting up something that we probably shouldn't right now.
Yep.
We're good.
Okay. We'll go to the next one.
Anyway, hey man, I sent you a doctor entrepreneur techie guy,
I saw that.
right? You just get him in next time. I think he must be sleeping now because it's 2 p.m. in Singapore, but I think he'll have a balance of ideas.
This guy. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he has a good balance of both sides.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
I was in that Greg's room just now. He's still too dominating, so I'm not sure. But he wants Tyler to be in there, though.
Cheryl, are you okay?
We're finishing here. We're finishing.
Just make sure. Okay.
Tyler, can you hear Tyler, or you gone off?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you go on to that place. I think he's looking for you.
Oh,
See ya.
Okay. See ya.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.